Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see what if Issei was as raised by Yasaka. Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. The rest of the day unfolded quite smoothly. While Issei had preferred to always be self-reliant, never one to lean on others, not even his own abilities, but when facing the prospect of being blown to smithereens by a low-ranking fallen angel or even a lowly imp, some adjustments to your survival strategy were in order. So, securing Azazel as an ally had become the linchpin that could unlock a plethora of potential paths. The man had deep pockets, an extensive network of connections, a 3-digit IQ, a reasonable dose of pragmatism, and a knack for seizing opportunities. But what truly set him apart was his stark sensibility compared to the other two options on the table. Suzaku would reel him into the hot mess that was the devil's world of politics. A spindly, life-encroaching web complete with flesh-eating spiders, always hungry to suck a brave soul who thought they could make a change without wanting to eliminate the opposition. Worse yet, this was no puzzle that brute force could solve. It took Rias 2 entire years as the lady of House Gremory to pat down the fires, the tiny embers of possible uprisings. Even then, recovery had been painfully sluggish. Finding individuals willing to dive headfirst into hell's political quagmire and do whatever it took was like hunting for a needle in a haystack that happened to be overflowing with used syringes. As for Michael, well, the issue lay not with the averse-milling angel himself, but with his angelic brethren who always sought to carve out a moral high ground for themselves. Angels were all about peace, yes, but conversing with them often felt like dealing with a robot whose sole purpose was to preach the good book. Heavenly Father this, Heavenly Father that, Issei couldn't help but ponder how many of them would turn their pristine white wings to a shade of pitch black if they discovered their Heavenly Father had, quite literally, bitten the celestial dust. To be fair, the angels had suffered the most losses. First, they were ravaged by the evil dragons, and then, as if that weren't enough, they lost their most powerful archangel, Michael. It was a double whammy that had left their faith and determination in tatters. Their newfound pacifism was nearly monk-like in its intensity. If not for the combined efforts of Griselda and Dulio, the beacon of Christianity might have been twiddling their angelic thumbs while the worlds around them descended into chaos. However, all those calamities had yet to unfold. As long as Issei didn't march down the exact path he had trodden before, he was confident that his grasp of the situation and Azazel's cunning would ensure the nightmares remained confined to his past. The man with the distinctive goatee had become the key in his quest to reshape the world, hence, the reason why he needed him. Yet, a cryptic message from Ophis had echoed in his mind before his soul's journey. You can never be certain of events that have not yet unfurled. You aren't the only one forging a different path, and the future won't be solely dictated by your actions. Despite her penchant for mysticism, Ophis had delivered a crystal-clear message. Keep an eye out for unexpected twists and turns, those events he believed should never come to pass. After all, people weren't mere automatons, they were prone to making choices that could lead down unexpected avenues. And if those individuals held enough sway, they might force him into further adjustments. Returning to this particular juncture in time had been a gamble, akin to sitting at a global poker table in a pitch-black room. Each player had been dealt a unique hand, and any one of them had the potential to pull a wild card out of their sleeves, and had all the possibility to potentially fuck him in the ass. Well, at least he could be grateful they weren't playing strip poker. As long as the catastrophic entity known as Trahexa remained unsummoned, Issei had an unshakable belief that he could tackle any curveball this world hurled at him. He had conquered it once, and he could damn well do it again, even without relying on the boosted gear. He wasn't entirely sure whether this outlook stemmed from desperation, wishful thinking, or a coping mechanism for the fact that he had left his family behind in the future. Though he was young and currently devoid of power, Issei was not as stupid. Still was, but at least not as badly. He retained the wealth of experiences from his past, experiences that had honed his mind to a razor's edge. He was determined to reach his goals, and anyone who stood in his way could either join him or prepare to be broken. Now, the time had come to assess whether his fabricated girlfriend required any breaking. It was too early to make a final judgment, and quite frankly, it seemed like a bit of a waste. Raynare hadn't displayed any murderous intent thus far, which, for her, was a step in the right direction. During their entire walk back to his house, Raynare had forcibly restrained her curiosity, suppressing her urge to ask questions by observing Issei's every move. Not a word had escaped his lips, and if she didn't know any better, she might have assumed he had nothing on his mind except air, or perhaps thoughts of her breasts, or perhaps he was just painfully socially awkward. However, this new incarnation of Hyoudou Issei was no longer the same person she had been assigned to watch over. There was no telling what he might be pondering or calculating, and frankly, Raynare didn't trust him enough to be concerned. Her duty, as assigned by Azazel, was to guard him. She didn't need to believe in him, she simply had to perform her job. And perform her job she did, with aplomb. His parents loved her. They showered her with compliments, praising her looks, her manners, and expressing their astonishment that their son had managed to find such a high-quality girlfriend, given their extremely low expectations. Understandably so, their son was a loser whose thoughts often navigated the gutters of indecency, it might as well be part of the gutter itself. Issei, of course, played the part of the bumbling fool just as excellently. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly, before laughing with his father at a dirty joke his mother scowled at, who then profusely apologized to her. He even came up with an entire story of his own, that it was a love at first sight. As nauseating as the charade was, Raynare rolled with it. This was all for the sake of pleasing Lord Azazel, her chance to make him proud. It was all she desired. Well, Gory, his father, chimed in, glancing at the clock. Wouldn't you know it? It's that time when we conveniently head to the shopping district to pick up some groceries for dinner. That leaves our cozy abode in the capable hands of our young lovebirds until evening, doesn't it? Issei's mother, Mickey Hyoudou, caught on to the blatant message. Is it? Oh, dear me, how could I have possibly forgotten? Even for Issei himself, who appeared to be in disbelief that his own parents had essentially given them a green light for some romantic escapades, the situation was painfully obvious. At least Raynare didn't need to maintain her Yuma form any longer. Back in her revealing attire, her enticing figure on full display but her wings carefully concealed within her back, Raynare cast a casual glance around Issei's bedroom, where he had brought her. It appeared to be the typical room of a Japanese teenage boy. She was almost surprised there weren't posters of skimpily clad girls adorning the walls. Her initial assumption had been that he was still harboring intentions of fucking her, but she quickly realized how simplistic that idea was. So, can I go now? She inquired, folding her hands across her chest, while Issei proceeded to discard his white uniform, carelessly tossing it onto the floor. Or do I still have to play nice? Stay, he replied instantly. More of a command than a plea. I need you. The last remark was entirely unnecessary, designed to elicit a cringe, and it succeeded admirably. The bastard even snorted and let out a laugh, clearly intended to make her feel uncomfortable, which it did. I need to make my own preparations, Hyoudou, she retorted, her exasperation evident in her tone. There are other matters I must attend to, such as instructing my underlings not to harass you on sight. Or possibly ending your life. Don't worry about them. I'm no devil, shouldn't just whack me in the streets. Don't want to be one either. She regarded him with a mix of prejudiced suspicion and genuine curiosity. If what you say is true, why didn't you simply align yourself with them? Aren't you risking changing the future too drastically? Because I refuse to be tethered to anyone in my pursuit of my goals, no matter how hot they are, he explained, sitting on the edge of his bed. Moreover, if I were to retrace my steps, it would take an eternity to regain all of my cool powers. Have you observed the devils in this town? Have you seen them enjoying a day off? Have you witnessed the mountains of paperwork on Ria's desk? Raynare couldn't help but make a face, the most neutral expression she had shown him thus far. Point taken. It's a never-ending grind if I attach myself to any of them or to any of the factions, Issei continued. Far too inefficient and excessively stressful. Man just wants to be free, innit? Then why not join the Gremory? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities. In that case, she countered. She didn't trust him, but Azazel was keen about him. Why not consider joining the Gremory? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities. Because then I'd be trapped in Azazel's lab, or it would be harder for me to curry favor with the other two factions, Issei replied, maintaining his intense gaze. Look, I'm not joining any of those three factions, or any other fan clubs, pantheons, or whatever. I'm playing Switzerland in World War II, but instead of just sitting there doing nothing, I want them to gather around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. Raynare raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. It was just a suggestion. Noted, Issei said. By the way, what makes you so attracted to Azazel's ass? Excuse me? Raynare retorted, taken aback. I mean, it's pretty obvious you're doing all this for him, not for me or the entire world, Issei explained with a shrug. So, I'm genuinely curious. You're not the type to throw yourself on the ground for someone unless there's something in it for you. Raynare hesitated before replying, obviously there is. Not something I feel like sharing with you. Now Issei raised his palms. Okay. Just curious, is all. Besides, aren't you from the future? Can't you just tell? Pant. You kicked the bucket early, mate, Issei said as if he was describing the sun's surface was probably hot. What? Raynare felt like she had been hit by a speeding truck. How? I'm only telling you this because I think that's no longer your fate, at least if you don't do stupid shit, which I'm pretty certain you won't. And why is that? Because you want to suck Azazel's balls, Issei bluntly stated. And you're not an idiot. You are, however, easily swayed by your emotions, and that's actually why you met your untimely end. Raynare kept her gaze locked onto him. Alright, then explain how I died. The first domino was that you killed me, Issei revealed, causing Raynare's eyes to widen in shock. It became evident that he wasn't referring to her failed attempt but rather her successful one. I killed you? Yeah. I mean, I was pretty dumb. It set off a chain of events, the most crucial one being Rias turning me into her devil. Nothing much happened back then, other than me experiencing my cruelest heartbreak. Woe is me. At least I can find comfort knowing I wasn't the only one being tricked at some point, Raynare bitterly remarked. Good for you, Issei replied with a heavy dose of bitter sarcasm. But then your other colossal mistake, the one that sealed your fate, was planning to take Asia's sacred gear for yourself. And guess what? You succeeded. But in my noble quest for vengeance, I struck you down, and Rias landed the finishing blow, turning you into a pile of black soot on the old church's marble floor. So you're telling me that I succeeded in all my plans, and I still ended up dead, Raynare lamented. No, Issei corrected, I'm telling you that your plan was stupid, and that's why you died. What? Raynare growled. How is that stupid when it clearly worked? Hey, bro, you died. Any plan that ends with you dying for nothing is a stupid plan in my book. Fuck, she cursed. Like you can do any better. I'm not you, I don't share your dreams, Issei snorted. But you should have known the devils are miles stronger than you. Rias pod one-shot at all your friends and you as well. She has Akeno while you have some mafia boss wannabe, a real estate agent with unbelievable cleavage, and a lowly and gothic dress. But no, you're just too full of yourself to consider the devils were even on your level. Raynare bit her lip, a maelstrom of emotions churning within her. Issei's words stung, and the bitter pill of truth was hard to swallow. Here's what I would have done if I were in your shoes, Issei continued, his tone laced with a hint of condescension. First off, no frolicking with the devils. Leave their turf be. Never give them a reason to come knocking on my door. I do my own thing, keep the sister's arrival a secret instead of parading her around like a peebeep and hand her over to Azazel. Twilight healing is great, but if you have to offer to get it, that's a blow to Azazel's reputation. It'd be a clean operation, no mess, no conflicts with the devils, no need for a cover-up, and I'd probably get a significant promotion because sacred gears turn Azazel into a giddy schoolgirl. Catch my drift. Raynare maintained her silence this time, her face a battleground of defeat and shame. But that ship sailed, and it's not anchoring back, Issei continued, unwavering. In a way, I just handed you a get-out-of-jail-free card rare. Motherfucker, Raynare muttered under her breath, shaking her head in disbelief. Alright, you've made your point. You're the clever one, the compassed one. Bravo. Want me to fetch your slippers while you're at it? But what? Putting you to shame? Nah, I'm not that petty. Maybe I am, if I'm like a character written by some deadbeat authors who value feelings over thinking. I was pissed at you for killing me and breaking my innocent pure maiden heart. He paused, drawing out the melodramatic phrase for effect, clearly enjoying her discomfort. Raynare couldn't help but gag internally at his theatrics. But that's old news, deader than the dead horse people like to beat around for some reason, Issei continued dismissively. I've got 100 other morons on my shit list, much bigger fish to fry. Raynare sighed, realizing that her attempts at getting a rise out of him weren't working. So what are you saying, then? Is this your way of demanding that I grovel at your feet? Are you telling me all this just to massage your ego because you can forgive me? Issei's casual smile began to fade, replaced by a stern expression. Don't mistake this for pity, he replied coldly. My feelings don't matter, and neither do yours. Only the end goal matters. Am I supposed to feel grateful for this? Raynare couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine as Issei's anger, controlled and focused, replaced his earlier nonchalance. It was a level of control she hadn't expected. One she didn't have. His anger was cold, direct. Pinpoint. And he was in control of it, not the other way around. And sitting alongside his anger was a scathing disappointment. I really thought you were more mature, Issei continued, his words sharp as a blade. Seems like I was wrong. Go ahead, keep acting like a child. I won't hold it against you. Children are free to express their emotions without consequence. She pursed her lips, throwing her eyes off his. Being told off by a boy, give her a break. Think, Raynare, think, Issei's voice remained calm, but the anger in it was evident. The tranquil fury finally sowed into his voice slapped her with each word. Use your brain, not your feelings. Emotions bring you nothing but trouble. Angry because you didn't get what you wanted. Upset because you feel humiliated. Offended because I'm speaking this way. Well, tough luck. No one cares. Your sob story, your past, how you got here, nobody gives a damn. They need a reason to care about who you are now before they leave and consider who you were back then. Raynare stood there, grappling with her emotions, her hands still clenched into fists. It was infuriating to be on the receiving end of a lecture from a high school student, especially one who had manipulated her so masterfully and left her pride in tatters. Yet, begrudgingly, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Gritting her teeth, Raynare swallowed her pride and muttered, "Fucking hell, can't believe I'm losing to a high schooler." Issei smirked faintly. "See? There's that competitive mindset again. You need to drop that." "Easy for you to say," Raynare grumbled. "Winning and losing, it's all in your head," Issei replied. "This world is like a game, but you don't have to be a player. When other people's problems become your problems, you've already lost. The key is to make your problems become other people's problems." Raynare scowled, trying to digest his words. "Like what you did back at the hotel." Issei shook his head. "No, that was different. I needed help, Azazel offered it, and now we're allies. We control the board, and you're the only player left. You're the one being tested here. Not me. Not Freed. Not Asia. You. And you're not doing too well so far. I'm giving you a nudge, but even if you mess this up, it won't matter to me or Azazel because we don't rely on your success. You're expendable. This is your chance to increase your value, Raynare. First step, get Asia." Raynare muttered an expletive under her breath. "You smug bastard." Issei shrugged. "Call it what you want, but you know it's true. Losing you won't affect us. So, what's your choice? Keep acting tough or accept it and improve." She sighed, her glare defeated. Her silence spoke volumes, and Issei knew she had accepted her position. Good, Issei nodded, satisfied with the outcome. He had put her in her place and made her realize her value or lack thereof. It was necessary to prevent her from becoming an obstacle in his plans. An unnecessary setback. He then rolled to lay on his bed, groaning a sigh. Here we go, thought Raynare, nearly exploding into another fit of rage. Maybe he just was a pervert. He still was, but that was just a part of him. "I am going to take a nap, and while I do, you make sure nobody comes in through that door." "What, you expect me to watch you sleep?" Raynare asked with annoyance. "It won't take long. 5 minutes, tops," Issei replied with a hint of amusement. "And wake me up if you see me doing something weird." "Something weird?" "You'll know," Issei said, closing his eyes. He hated this bit, but since he didn't have a milligram of any sparkly magical powers to shoot big lasers, he had to make do. He steadied his breathing as Raynare watched with slight confusion, nonetheless keeping her silence and leaning against the door. Within 10 seconds, he passed out. The world shifted from darkness to light, and Issei couldn't help but grumble, "Goddammit, leave the light on, won't you?" HMMH. The giant Welsh dragon, Ddraig, who had been slumbering in the dried-up lake at the center of the meadow, stirred awake. The ground rumbled as he yawned, his emerald eyes locking onto Issei. "Oh. It's you. Oh great, you were sleeping through my entire spiel." Issei couldn't resist a snarky remark. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with his presence. Rise and shine, lil Drakey. I've got a special gift for you, my left hand, in mint condition." Ddraig took a moment to register the reason for his host's rude awakening. Wait. Right now?" "No, next year, when it's a collector's item." "Of course, right now. Let's get on with it. I'm trading my left hand for a smidgen of your oh-so-mighty powers." He inched closer to Issei, studying him with groggy curiosity. All right. But you do realize the cost, right?" Issei quirked an eyebrow. "Catch?" "Nah, I'm just doing it for the fashionable accessory." "Of course, I know there's a catch. What's a little limb loss between friends?" Ddraig pondered Issei's audacity for a moment before sighing dramatically. "Very well, you crazy human. Then at least tell me, why are you doing this? Is it all about power?" Issei leaned in, his expression turning thoughtful. "Well, power is like ice cream, Ddraig. A little bit is nice, but too much and you'll get brain freeze. I just need some leverage, you know, in case I find myself in a tight spot or if trouble comes knocking. It's like having an extra umbrella on a rainy day." Ddraig blinked once, digesting his answer. "You don't seem all that attracted to power." "Goddamn right I'm not," the man huffed. "Trust me, I've had my fill of power trips. Your brand of power attracts all sorts of show-offs with flashy abilities who think I'm here for a showdown. It got old faster than a melted popsicle on a summer day." The dragon tilted his head, his massive eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and sympathy. "But what alternatives do I truly have?" "You'd rather be a glorified power bank," Issei quipped, raising an eyebrow at Draig's earlier remark. Ddraig reeled his neck backward, slightly taken aback. "Well, of course not. I've been stuck here for nearly 1,000 years, changing hosts but never truly escaping. My role has been to help them defeat the White One." "I know," Issei said with a weak smile. He didn't want to see Ddraig like this. Didn't want to hear that again from the dragon. "It's a cruel cycle for you, eh?" HRMMI, Ddraig admitted, tucking his colossal head between his mighty, scaly arms. After hearing your words earlier today, I've been contemplating my existence, the souls I've ended, and whether redemption is even attainable. I thought that perhaps offering my strength to you, in the hopes of a brighter tomorrow, might be a path to redemption. But then. I arrived and declared I didn't need your power, right? Issei finished for him. Ddraig affirmed, his gargantuan form adopting an almost puppy-like demeanor. How a dragon could resemble a kicked puppy was beyond him. Unlike his host, Ddraig had no need to conceal his emotions, making his vulnerability more evident. It wasn't rare to find him mulling or being down about particular events. Don't worry Ddraig, Issei said, stepping forward to pat Draig's colossal nose. I don't want power, but I do need it. You'll have your chances. Remember the promise I made to you in the future? I promised you to find a way to remove your seal. What? His emerald eyes brightened, filled with surprise as Ddraig rocketed to sit down. The tremor he caused threw Issei off balance as he stumbled to his back. Is it even possible? Ddraig exclaimed, his voice a blend of hope and disbelief. Hey, easy down, will you? He grumbled, though he couldn't help but smile at Draig's excitement. I don't have all the answers yet, but it's possible. God slapped that seal on you, and it's a tough one. So, it'll take time before we even get the ball rolling. But if I can gather the brainpower of Azazel, Ajuka, Michael, and a certain genius Valkyrie in the future, I'm pretty damn sure they can figure it out. It'll be a slow process, and I'll need your help along the way, but I don't break promises. Ddraig blinked in astonishment, his colossal eyes nearly sparkling with hope. Are you certain? You're willing to give up the chance to become the most powerful being in existence? Sure, I'm sure, Issei nodded resolutely. You goddamn right I don't want that. I've been at the top of the power food chain before, and it's overrated. I owe the future to you, my scaly friend. You've already met my conditions looking back at your past and pledging to be better. So here's my promise to you, a bit earlier than expected. It won't happen overnight, but trust me, I hate seeing you all gloomy. Chin up, you big lizard. Let's work on breaking you free from this damn prison. Ddraig, once again, was at a complete loss on what to say. Dragons shouldn't cry. Dragons never cry. But he didn't know if dragons were ever treated with such a kindness that he felt like a hole had been punched through his chest. Oh boy. Here comes the waterwork. No. Ddraig sniffled, lying poorly as he looked up at the bright skies. The sleepiness hasn't yet left my eyes. Issei rolled his eyes, a mix of happiness and frustration dancing in his gaze. Sure thing, Drakey. Let's not get carried away just yet. I still need you to munch on my arm and share some of that fantastic power. Of course, replied the Crimson Dragon, still gazing at the endless azure sky. Just give me a moment. I can sense the sleepiness fading away. Alright, as Issei face planted into the grassy meadow, emotion swirled within him. He was content, yet he also grappled with a sense of emptiness. His joy wasn't as potent as it used to be. It felt more like a muted sense of gladness. Over the years, his heart had become weathered and worn, like a dragon's tough hide. He'd grown desensitized to the world, with happiness fleeting, sadness barely leaving a mark, and satisfaction nothing more than a laugh that lasted 5 seconds tops. He could still smile and enjoy himself, just not with the same fervor as before. The old world had changed him, damaged him in ways he couldn't fully repair. However, Issei remained resolute to spare his friend from ever experiencing the same hollowness he now carried within his heart. The school bell's melodious chime couldn't have arrived at a better time for Issei. Today marked Asia's anticipated arrival, and with a bit of luck, she'd be under Azazel's care. Of course, Issei hoped Raynare was taking a deliberate and methodical approach to this matter. Waiting for the bell was like watching paint dry, and he couldn't even indulge in that, as he was seated right in the middle of the classroom, instead of the classic protagonist spot by the window. He sighed, wishing he could look cool while gazing outside. Actually, she should just text him now that he thought of it. So Issei took out his cell phone and realized he was still living in the early 20s with this outdated flip phone model. Not that humans' development in technology made any difference to his old soul-sucking job of whack and unreasonably evil mole. Hyoudou. But, before he could lament his lack of window view or send Raynare an email, a shout came from a few seats to his right. Issei's attention shifted to the source of the noise, and there she was, a brunette with a demeanor that could curdle milk, arms firmly crossed beneath her rather impressive bosom. Sup Murayama? He felt a bit conflicted for staring at her chest in order to keep his mask, but since it was necessary, no taboo was too much for him. Don't you sup me and act like nothing happened yesterday and eyes are up here, Hyoudou. He reluctantly tore his gaze away from her chest and met her stern olive eyes. What a surprise, she quickly looked away, her cheeks adorned with a faint blush. Issei couldn't help but think, seriously? After 2 years of her despising him, it took only a day for her to forget it all and act friendly. He felt like he had stumbled into a rom-com and I'm with the fastest character development on record. But no. He had no time nor place for ordinary humans. He had 2 slots, and those were reserved by his 2 idiots. He needed to let her down. Gently. What? He asked, causing her to flinch as she remembered why she had approached him. If you're here for a rematch, sorry to disappoint, but I won't be battling you again unless you're up for a duel at my house. In his bedroom, chimed a voice from his left shoulder, courtesy of the bald Mitsuda. On his bed, added Motohama from his right. And let the panties hit the. There was a moment of uneasy silence before both Issei and the trio yelled in unison, Fleur. The trio burst into raucous laughter, seemingly impervious to the disapproving looks and disgusted scoffs from their classmates. They were simply relishing the moment and nothing could dampen their spirits. The poor brunette captain went beet red as she opened her mouth, her lips quivering. He could see the words jumping around on her lips. What's your game plan with our main man here, Mayumi? Mitsuda quipped, playfully patting Issei's shoulder. He's not yours to torment anymore, you know. He's a hero, Motohama chimed in, casually resting his elbow on Issei's head, the rest of his hand forming a precarious perch atop Issei's unruly nest of hair. Handle with care. Murayama shot them both a scornful look. It's Murayama, you baldy. And I'm not here to start a brawl with any of you unless you're looking for a reason besides. Hyoudou faced his punishment while the rest of you made a hasty retreat. It might be our day off, but the kendo girls never forget. Are you secretly an elephant? Mitsuda quipped, earning himself a glare from Murayama. He quickly took a step back, raising his hands in a sign of surrender. Yikes. Tempers. Big scary. Sorry Ice. Motohama also backed away in fear of being butchered by a dozen wooden swords. She's all yours. Wow. I didn't realize I'm friends with wussies. You handled her just fine yesterday. You've got this. Mitsuda called out as he and Motohama made a hasty exit, their laughter echoing in the corridor. In their wake, one girl let out a startled shriek as they playfully pretended to pounce on her. Ah, so carefree and so out Ophis. They might have been unpopular with the school's populace, but they never complained or spoke ill of their comrades. Whenever they were around, it was hard to feel down. Without realizing it, a tranquil smile graced his face as he gazed out the door they had exited through. His smile seemed to have an unexpected effect on a certain young lady who, for the first time in her life, felt a strange sensation stirring within her, one she couldn't quite decipher and initially mistook for a stomachache. So, Issei turned his attention back to Murayama, who seemed unusually tense. Got something on your mind? Me, perhaps. It's nothing much and no, she lied. Her gaze darted nervously from side to side, a finger idly twirling a strand of her brown hair before tucking it behind her ear. Her heart pounded in her chest as though she'd just completed a rigorous training session. Her face felt slightly flushed and she couldn't quite pinpoint why. This was bad news for him. Worse for her. He had no desire to break hearts, but it didn't mean he wouldn't do it if necessary. I was just wondering if the rumors are true. Ah, finally. A card he'd forgotten he possessed. Oh, you mean my new girlfriend, he exclaimed with the enthusiasm of a boy who just snagged his first girlfriend. Murayama's demeanor crumbled before him. Her nervous smile gradually faded into a frown. Yup, he maintained his exaggerated smile, watching her wrestle with her emotions. Definitely. I didn't see that coming, to be honest, she mumbled aloud. I thought if there's anyone who could tolerate your perversion, it would be Irina. What? Issei blinked. What? What she referred to couldn't be just a random girl named Irina, it had to be that Irina. And still that made no sense to him as to why she knew her this soon. Come again. Murayama blinked several times, peering at him through a veil of newfound pain she didn't even know she had. Irina. Your childhood friend. All the girls were surprised, you know, because you two were so close, but never seemed to take it to the next level. Right, Issei blinked owlishly, rubbing his eyes, then nose. Sniffling. Sobering. Thinking he was drunk. Irina, huh? Yes. Are you feeling okay, Hyoudou? Murayama asked, beginning to worry that she'd accidentally knocked some sense out of him the other day. Something was definitely off here. Either things were very right and he was expecting them to be wrong, or vice versa. Yahoo! Bakun. Just as Issei began to contemplate the unusual turn of events, another girl entered his classroom. Her cheerful and slightly annoying tone, her characteristic chestnut twin tails, the same bright smile, and an overall janky girl vibe that was unmistakable. She was skipping her way to his table, sporting the same radiant smile she always reserved for him, even though deep down, he knew she longed for a real husband. But that wasn't what was important right now. And I'm here to tell you that and escort you there since I'm so nice. Come on. Quit looking at me like that. Hyoudou Irina was here. Prez wants to see you. And she was a devil. Hey Kun. Where are you scampering off to? Toilet. Fancy joining me? You? No. The girl with sunrise-like energy exclaimed. Just don't take too long. It's not every day someone gets invited to our club. And indeed, it wasn't every day that he got to see her either. He hadn't expected this meeting to happen so soon, he was completely unprepared. At least her smile remained the same. The mystery of how an angel devoted to Gabriel had ended up as a devil worried him. Her family was religious, not Satanists, and, most importantly, they were good people. Secondly, what about Zenobia? And Kiba? Was Kiba even still around, or had Irina somehow switched places with him? Ddraig, fill me in on everything about Irina. The girl? Isn't she your childhood friend? You know her better than I'll ever do. Yes, she's my childhood friend, but she shouldn't be appearing this early. This isn't exactly the same timeline I recall. So, tell me what you know about her. That's unsettling to answer your question, she's orphaned. Orphan at Dynamite this soon? By Gabriel's heavenly tits, what else had been changed? Ddraig trailed off, perturbed by his host's extreme reaction. That's an unsettling twist. Yeah shit. No need to hit the panic button just yet. Let's keep going. Continue. Your ability to remain calm at the unexpected is reassuring, partner. But I digress. I spend my time mostly in slumber, so my knowledge of her won't be perfect, Ddraig reminded him. From what I've gathered, she was a childhood friend. She went overseas for a while, and when she returned, she was an orphan. Your family even took her in for a bit before she moved into the dorm with the devils. That's about all I know, partner. Irina. Orphaned. Why her? But Issei knew better than to keep firing questions into the abyss. Alright, that's not expected, but that shouldn't change things too much. I can work with this, thanks bud. Anytime. Just give me a shout when you need me, partner. If you were still your old self, I'd have to babysit you and give you sage advice constantly. But 6 years of experience seem to have made you wiser than I am now. Now. Don't beat yourself up, Drakey. You're just being outshone by a future version of you who's had the advantage of becoming much wiser. And far more jaded. Depressed, even. He might as well be called the Jaded Dragon Emperor, though Issei decided to keep that thought to himself. And much more arrogant too. I'm actually surprised you're introspective so quickly. Do you suppose I've changed as well by this time warp? You're definitely less of a pain in the ass, so probably yes. The thing is, I've got no grip on how significant those changes are. I hate being in the dark, but I hate overthinking while doing nothing even more so. Onwards to the devils, I suppose. I'm sure you'll be alright. Yeah. Enough of the sentimental speeches. Issei heard a hearty rumbling chuckle that sounded like rocks shifting as Ddraig severed their mental connection. After he washed his face, emerging from the bathroom stall, Issei meticulously played out his facade, casually pushing down the handle to conclude his fake bathroom session. One perk he relished about being in a formerly all-girls school was the impeccable cleanliness of the restrooms. Even the boys' facilities were immaculate and void of any unpleasant odors, all thanks to the judicious use of magic, of course. But now was not the time for contemplating toilet maintenance. As he exited the bathroom, he spotted Irina leaning against a wall not far from the entrance. Although her past appeared to have undergone some alterations, she still wore that familiar troubled expression when she thought no one was watching. But he always noticed her subtle nuances, even after not seeing each other for a year or more. Discovering that she had silently cried herself to sleep because the Egyptian gods had required his help in capturing escaped souls from the Styx when they were supposed to be cherishing their rare moments together was like driving another 5-inch nail into his chest. He had vowed to protect her smile, and he couldn't let that slip through his fingers again. Yo. Issei greeted her, causing her to flinch slightly. What's with the long face? Are you jealous that I'll be meeting some hot chicks? Nah. Rather than taking his bait, Irina gazed at him and asked, do you love her? What? Issei blinked. Your new girlfriend, she clarified, her face a blend of concern and, oddly, not jealousy, but rather sadness. Are you in love with her? Issei blinked, taken aback. Well, I mean, she did confess to me, and she's pretty, so not love yet, but I tend to like people who like me. Is that so? Her smile returned, and this time, it seemed genuine. Just confirming that he wasn't in love with Raynare seemed to lift her spirits. Hopefully, it stayed that way for the right reasons. Okay then. You like who you like, Akun, good for you. Anyway, let's go. Irina took his sleeve and practically dragged him along. The prez is waiting. Before long, Irina started to run ahead of him. A challenge accepted, although it was obvious she was holding back. Well, so was he. He might not have regained his full power yet, nor did he intend to use it unless absolutely necessary. But by sacrificing his left arm, he had regained some semblance of it, just enough to fend off any pesky fallen angels who weren't on Azazel's peril. Tomorrow, when he met with Azazel, he would focus on keeping the Dragonification in check. Otherwise, people might freak out when they see his hand covered in crimson scales. For now, he ran, past the irate teachers shouting about no running in the hallways, past Genshiro Saji, who was currently occupied posting something on the bulletin board good, he was present, and then through the schoolyard, deeper into the old school building. By this point, it was time to pretend to be winded, so he slowed down, grabbed his knees, and bent over. Haha, alright, you're not bad. Still hunched over, he took a deep breath and let out a loud exhale. We'll call it a draw. The draw, Arena exclaimed, still full of energy. Yeah, right. You were eating my dust, Akun. Maybe better luck next time. You had a false start. Bleh. The race started when I said so. She snickered, wiping a bead of sweat from her chin with the hem of her school uniform, inadvertently revealing her toned stomach. The definition in her abs was faint but more pronounced than what she had back then. It seemed she had been putting in more effort at this age than she did in the future, now the past. Issei couldn't help but flash a grin. Nice abs. It should be known that this comment was genuinely heartfelt. It came straight from the depths of his slumbering perversion, which was clearly alive and well, even if he hadn't had many chances to let it run wild lately. Arena didn't blush, but she did give him a toothy grin. Perv. Let me touch it. No. Oh, come on. Just a little stroke. No. Arena giggled, protecting her stomach with her hands and playfully swinging her head, using her long twin tail as a whip that smacked him in the face. Smack. Wah. Ask your girlfriend for that. You could be my girlfriend too, problem solved, Issei quipped, half joking, but with a hint of genuine interest. Why settle for one when I could have both? For a moment, her smile softened, and it almost seemed like she was hiding something, protecting him from some unseen truth. Then her toothy grin returned, accompanied by a cheerful tee-hee. Bring on, self-proclaimed harem king Wanab. Well. How the turntables. The self-proclaiming king now proclaimed someone as self-proclaimer. Probably the biggest twist so far. Ha. Just you wait. I'll prove to the world that I can satisfy 2 or more girls all at once. He boldly declared, even though he had, in fact, done that multiple times. There were even sex orgies held in his name. Both sexually and affectionately. Now Rina began to blush. Only due to his lack of shame. What are you saying, you idiot? Perverted idiot. Perv. Ekisei. Hero Hyoudou. Do those insults mean anything to me? Issei smirked. Ha. I'm immune to them. They're not insults, they're my badge of honor. Shidu Arena stuck out her tongue, and Issei quickly grabbed it between his fingers out of habit. Curse their silly adult games. Before she could be surprised by his reflex, he smoothly played it cool by making a shit-eating grin. Ha. Got your tongue. MLM bleh. You taste like sweat. Yeah? Can I taste what you'll taste like? Arena froze, her face turning a shade of red that could only be described as comical. If there were fumes shooting out of her ears, it wouldn't have been surprising. Whatever. Pervert. Get away from me, you deviant. I am Purei. Their sprint continued, with Issei chasing Arena through the corridors and up the stairs. As they reached the upper floor, Issei's eyes fell upon a striking figure standing outside the occult research clubroom, gazing out of the window. Long, flowing black hair was tied into a ponytail with a large white ribbon, and her crimson eyes shimmered like smoldering embers. Her figure was nothing short of enchanting, capable of making Herglesses second-guess their shape, and Issei's thoughts predictably ventured into his classic perverted territory before he could rein them in. Wait. White ribbon. Since when did Akeno start wearing contacts? The answer was, never. Because that ponytail was not Akeno's, despite the uncanny similarity of their shape and form. Ah. Suzaku Payson. We didn't keep you long, did we? Suzaku? Issei's confusion deepened, and he quickly initiated his disguise, focusing intently on Suzaku's appearance. While they carried on their conversation, Issei held a mental conference with himself. Not at all. I just came here for some fresh air. Well, I got the boy. His presence sighed. And he thought he was immune to surprise after Arena's arrival. Suzaku, here? Now? How? Wumstvelses. Ddraig popped in. I'm guessing this is another unexpected occurrence. I've been hit by 2 curveballs in a day, Ddraig Issei grumbled, keeping his eyes at her childbearing hips now. Whatever that was supposed to mean. I know her, and I also know she isn't supposed to be here. She's Tobio's companion supposedly. This is getting worrying. I can't offer much assistance in this situation, partner. You've never crossed paths with any of the devils before, except for the orphan. Arena. She has a name, Ddraig. Don't be rude. Right. Not my intention. I meant Arena. The pigtailed girl, the dragon corrected himself. As I was saying, I won't be of much help. That's fine. I'm just shocked, as all at least so far, only the minor actors have been popping up sooner than the old script. His girls were top priorities for him. But to say they all make an equal impact on his previous world would be telling himself a lie. But big or small, no matter their role, he loved them all the same. But now I'm no longer sure of any of their backstories. What do you plan to do? I'll spill the beans to Azazel about everything, Issei replied without missing a beat. He needs to know about this, and I can't have him thinking I was embroidering the truth about certain aspects when, in reality, not everything is following the same script. Understood. Any hunches about the cause of these twists? Ophis mentioned something related to this. I initially assumed that my actions in the past would reshape the future, not that the mere act of time travel would cause certain events to swerve off the beaten path. Akun. What on earth are you staring at, you leech? Come here and go inside. Issei jolted back to the present when Irina's voice pulled him out of his trance. He must have appeared like a drooling schoolboy, which suited him just fine. Pretending to shake his head as if to dispel his delusions, he staggered toward the clubroom, briefly giving Suzaku a mischievous, perverted grin before entering. Where Akeno would have giggled, Suzaku responded with a stern glare, which was reassuring. Their personalities seemed to be holding up relatively well. The clubroom remained as Issei remembered it. The windows were open unless it was swelteringly hot outside, and the air conditioning was off. Rias had called it a small effort to save the Earth's dying atmosphere. The furniture, the wallpapers, the paneled wooden flooring, everything was exactly the same. But one glaring difference awaited him, and he had mentally prepared himself for it. The short white-haired girl, enjoying her rice bowl on the green Victorian couch, caught his eye with her bright amber gaze. Please stop staring. It's rude, she chided. Oh, right. Sorry, Issei stammered. Quietly spoken, yet her words were as pinpointed as a bee's sting. That was Koneko, all right. Except Koneko wasn't supposed to have that much of a chest. She should have been as flat as a board, providing balance to the otherwise chaotic spectrum of breast sizes in the occult research club. She was meant to bring harmony, not further disrupt the scale. That said, good for her. He'd missed the times he was able to tease her for her chest. Nonetheless, he couldn't help but think that it was good for her. He would miss the times he could tease her about her chest. Koneko had also grown a bit taller. This was how she would look if she kept her Shirin mode active, with her white fluffy ears discreetly tucked away. Something must have happened to her in the past. Something likely related to Kuroka. His best guess was that the trouble her sister had stirred up had either been resolved or had never occurred. But where was Kuroka? Issei muttered, feigning amazement and using the opportunity to discreetly scan the room. The crimson-haired heiress wasn't here yet, but he could hear the sound of a running shower coming from the bathroom in the far corner. His gaze shifted to Akeno, who was currently preparing Ria's usual Earl Grey tea. Devils loved their tea, but Issei wasn't a fan. It was too sweet for his taste, and he felt pretentious because he couldn't discern the difference between cheap supermarket tea and the expensive, hand-picked variety. All in all, Issei didn't mind tea, but he preferred water, a refreshing drink that was good for both body and mind. And should be much more accessible. He continued to survey the room, mentally counting the heads. There should be one more, a blonde and handsome young man who was ambiguously sort of gay. Hyoudou Kiba was conspicuously absent. A troubling suspicion began to creep into Issei's mind. If it turned out to be true, it could complicate things, but he reassured himself that he could handle it, or at least that's what he told himself. Well, don't just stand there like an idiot. Irina barked behind him, playfully kicking his butt. Go take a seat. Prez is showering right now. You should probably freshen up too, Irina, Suzaku suggested in her soft-spoken manner as she walked past, settling on the same couch as Koneko, leaving an empty spot in the middle, likely reserved for Rias. Feigning nervousness, Issei scratched his head, fidgeted with his fingers, tapped his toes, and swayed back and forth like a jittery schoolboy surrounded by beautiful women. He knew he had to stay attentive. He noticed Koneko and Suzaku shooting suspicious glances at his left arm, confirming his suspicion that they had sensed a change in him and were biding their time. Koneko, with her newfound growth and ability to read the flow of life force, could easily detect that his left hand was no longer human. Suzaku, having a sacred beast that shared her name, was an expert at sensing supernatural presences. But none of this mattered to him, as he was prepared for this discovery. The sooner they realized he was aware of them, the better. However, he couldn't reveal the truth right now. It would only make them more suspicious and less likely to trust him, hindering his goal of gaining their cooperation with Azazel. If he allowed surprises like these to throw him into a panic, then the world would have been in ruins. Issei remained calm. He knew what he needed to do. Confirm some key facts with Azazel and ensure that the major players in the Trahixa situation, Azazel, Surziches, Michael, Auden and Rizavam, remained in their roles and personalities. As long as they did, he was on the right track. Steam billowed out from the stained glass door of the bathroom, announcing Rias Gremory's exit from her shower. Unabashed as ever, especially when she knew how to use her stunning body to her advantage, she strutted out with only a towel wrapped around her enviable curves. Her radiant crimson hair was tied up in a bun to keep it dry, exposing her graceful neck and smooth back. She was as breathtakingly beautiful as he remembered. Ba, Ria-senpai. Irina stammered in shock, using the proper honorific as she panicked behind him. Close your eyes, Ikun. No, Issei responded with a lecherous grin. No, I don't think I will. Nia. It's fine. Relax, Hyoudou, with a confident chuckle and an equally confident stride, Ria said calmly. Much to Irina's petulant frustration. With her grace and even steps, Rias approached the table and took a seat between Suzaku and Koneko. Still covered by only one white fluffy towel. A fact that didn't escape Issei's attention. Issei flashed his trademark grin, causing Koneko to cast a disgusted look in his direction. He noticed a small triumphant smile on Ria's lips, a sign that she had bought into his act. However, this particular act required minimal effort. Rias was stunning, and while she could be a bit prudish, so were most of the devils he had encountered, with only a select few exceptions. She might not have been his first love, but he was her first love, and that was what mattered most to him. Afternoon, Hyoudou-kun, Rias greeted him with an unassuming smile, casually crossing one slender leg over the other, revealing a generous portion of her upper thighs. The old Issei might have been sporting a noticeable reaction by now, but the current Issei required more than visual stimulation. Nonetheless, he pretended to be captivated by her enticing thighs, keeping his gaze fixed on them for several seconds until Irina smacked him in the back of his head. Ow. He winced, feeling the actual pain. Good afternoon Gremory. Rias chuckled lightly. You can call me Rias. Sweet. Issei pumped his fist in silent celebration of his minor victory. The devils were fully convinced by his act of feigned low intellect and ape-like behavior. Then, you can call me Issei. Yeah. Afternoon, Ria-senpai. You have a nice club here. It's very European. Why, thank you, Rias replied. Have you been to Europe before, Issei-kun? Nope, but I've seen some pictures. My mother really wants to go there sometime. It's a beautiful continent, Rias said. But I still think Japan's natural beauty and culture are equally beautiful, if not more so, with its unique blend of tradition and modernity. Of course you'd say that. Damn Japanophile. Yeah, your thighs are very beautiful. I'd like to go there sometimes, he mumbled, inwardly reveling in the girl's reactions to his remarks. Even Rias seemed momentarily caught off guard. Akeno, as always, found humor in his candid statement and giggled as she set steaming cups of tea on the rather large coffee table before quietly retreating from the conversation. Ow. 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 Issei's enjoyment was about as fleeting as a snowflake in a sauna, thanks to Irina's relentless head poking. You got some guts, don't you, Ikun? But let's not stray from the matter at hand, Rias interjected, giving a nod of appreciation to Irina for her perfectly timed distraction. Issei-kun, I'm simply curious about this new girlfriend of yours. Would you be so kind as to indulge me with a few answers? Depends. I mean, why do you want to know? We were actually thinking of paying a visit to her school, Rias explained, and I thought having some background information might prove quite useful. So you dragged me here just to be your personal Wikipedia? Issei muttered, and Rias visibly paused, holding her breath. Then Issei deflated with a sigh. Man, I thought my popular phase was finally here. Rias let out an audible sigh of relief, and the collective tension in the room eased up. It was a classic case of people underestimating the intelligence of those around them, but that was somewhat understandable when an entire school practically worshipped them, reinforcing their already inflated egos. If Yufu they say that girls love a good sense of humor, Akeno chimed in with a playful smile. You really think so, Akeno-senpai? Issei shot back, casting an impish glance at her. Is that your subtle way of telling me I have a shot with you? I wonder. She didn't say you were funny. Ouch, Issei replied, wincing at Koneko's sharp retort. He couldn't help but wonder if she'd been using her newly developed assets to sharpen her tongue, those soft grinding stones Kuroka would undoubtedly be proud of. Rias skillfully navigated the conversation back to its original course. Now, back to my initial question, may I proceed with my inquiries? Sure, senpai. I probably don't know much since we kinda just met yesterday, he feigning cluelessness with a strong alibi. Check. But what do you want to know? A fair bit. And here it comes. The interrogation. Too bad for her, Issei was no stranger to dancing around the truth and weaving intricate webs of deception. He never displayed defensiveness, diverted questions, or resorted to cliché phrases like to be honest to dodge inquiries. Instead, he offered up everything he believed Rias wanted to know, all while pouring on the enthusiasm for his new girlfriend to the point where it was a wonder he didn't start blushing himself. In the end, Rias gained no substantial information, except that the boy remained blissfully unaware that he was being duped by a cunning fallen angel. But Issei's convincing act as the clueless guy failed to deter the curious devils from pursuing their line of inquiry. As he exited the school building, Irina managed to catch up with him, disguising her presence under the pretense of wanting to visit, while in reality, she likely intended to rummage through his place. Searching for any hidden fallen angel surveillance devices or magical espionage gadgets. Great. No Azazel for the day, it seemed maybe at night then. Issei couldn't risk calling Raynare either, as it might compromise her mission to rescue Asia. She needed to tread carefully in Freed's dangerous territory. Speaking of Freed, the unhinged fallen angel was a considerable threat, even to someone like Raynare, given her current circumstances. If the rogue exorcist could match Kiba's abilities at this stage, it was a clear indicator that Raynare was treading on dangerous ground. Speaking of which, where the hell was Kiba? Kiba's sudden disappearance was another perplexing mystery. Had some divine prankster found it amusing to transform him from a vengeful devil into a full-fledged paladin of God? Did he cease to exist altogether? Did his vanishing act somehow tie in with Irina's sudden appearance in the school? Issei couldn't simply approach the devils with these questions. Azazel was his go-to for seeking answers, but his inquiries with the devils might risk revealing his extensive knowledge of their world. It was a delicate balance. Though there might be a chance Kiba was still in the school, just serving under a different devil, namely Sona Citri, but if Issei asked about him and he was never a student and the devils knew of his name, then that would be like stepping into a landmine. Koneko's physical growth was a puzzle as well, hinting at a dramatic shift in the Nekashu sisters' storyline. Whether this change would prove positive or negative, Issei couldn't determine yet. But he wouldn't mind an earlier encounter with Kuroka. She brought an element of fun and excitement to their otherwise brooding lives, and when her issues with Koneko were resolved, she became twice as entertaining and twice as passionate. Irina's unexpected arrival was a surprise within a surprise, possibly signaling a spanner in the works. It was conceivable that his knowledge of the past might not be as reliable as he had hoped, but as long as key figures like Azazel, Surziches, Michael, Auden, and Rizavim remained consistent, these deviations could likely be managed. However, he did confirm Raynare's scheme was still the same. So was Freed's insanity as confirmed by her and Azazel, and Kakabiel's ongoing rebellion. Surziches and Michael seemed to have the same identity and personalities as well, and so as long as the important players retained the same roles, these unexpected changes should be nothing big to put extra worry about. However, one thing was certain. He needed to inform Azazel at the earliest opportunity. Building a relationship of trust was essential, and Issei wanted to maintain a strong bond with the governor. The fate of the peace negotiations rested squarely on Azazel's shoulders. Yo. Ikun. Hey. Oi. As Issei mused over his concerns, Irina's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. She had caught up to him, and as usual, she couldn't resist ribbing him. Hawa. Snap out of it. What were you thinking? You went all Siryu-like for 3 straight minutes. Oh, you know, Issei replied, his tone full of mock innocence. Well, I mean the girls in your club have some seriously serious badinkers. They made me think about them seriously. Like, what'll happen if I smush my head between them and sorta just go brrrrrrrrrr. As he pantomimed a rather enthusiastic motorboating of invisible breasts, Irina groaned and rolled her eyes in exasperation. Never mind, I don't want to know. You really can't get your mind out of the gutter, can you? Hell no. The gutter is my home. It's where my thoughts belong, Issei declared with a heroic flourish, placing a hand over his heart. Irina chuckled at his antics, and Issei took the opportunity to ask her a few questions about herself. By the way, when are you planning to visit my place again? He began innocently, noticing the sudden shift in her demeanor. Mom and Dad miss you, you know. I think they like you more than they like me. There may be some time in the future. But first, I want to be a strong independent woman. Irina fist-bumped the air, still with her vibrant energy. What adorable creature was this? She was like an energetic spaniel, especially with how she stylized her hair and the color. Maybe even strong enough to protect you, Ikun. Oh yeah? Protect me from what, exactly? Misbehaving girls. Bad girls, she said, her tone unexpectedly genuine and directed toward Raynare, revealing her true purpose as a devil to shield him from the wicked. So this was it. This was the only hint he needed to connect the dots. Irina had become a devil to protect him, likely making a deal with Rias or the Gremory devil herself. Issei couldn't help but curse the unseen hand that had tampered with the past, causing profound changes in the lives of those he held dear. It wasn't just Irina, Suzaku, and Koneko who had been affected, there were likely others. It was now his responsibility to set things right. If Irina had been orphaned during her travels while she mastered her holy sword, it was plausible that they fell victim to the same forces that had experimented on Kiba. But Issei didn't want to make any assumptions. He made a mental note to confirm these details with Azazel, the man who held many of the answers. "I'll make it right," he swore. His resolve was firm, but now, it was steeled. Irina and Suzaku and Koneko couldn't be the only ones whose past had changed. Those were on him. His fault. No excuse about it. Hyoudou Issei never made excuses. Anyone who was good at making good excuses was rarely good at doing anything else. He was good at both, but that's besides the point. He would make it right for all of them, securing their futures and setting things straight. As his phone buzzed, Issei retrieved it from his pocket, expertly flipping it open with a playful grin. He concealed the screen from Irina's prying eyes, flashing her a teasing expression that widened into a victorious smile. It was from Raynare. Asia was safe. "For a porn addict, your room is pretty average," Azazel remarked as he assessed Hyoudou Issei's bedroom, his tone light with a hint of sarcasm. Issei shot back without missing a beat, "Your face is pretty average." The two men exchanged banter, their words laced with a playful edge, sharing a moment of laughter, nothing uproarious, just a brief hearty chuckle that lightened the atmosphere. Azazel's initial assessment of Issei's room wasn't far from the mark. It was a rather ordinary space, adorned with white walls occasionally marred by creamy splotches in the corners. The bed and furnishings were unremarkable, with no particular standout features. The only exception was a small bookcase tucked away in one corner, which housed Issei's collection of forbidden tomes, some harder to obtain than others. Earlier, Azazel had arrived via his trademark burst of black feathers, bypassing the front door to avoid the presence of the devils. While they could have met at the hotel, Issei had chosen his own abode for this impromptu meeting at 8:30 in the evening, implying that he had a compelling reason for doing so. If not, Azazel was prepared to give him a reasonable scolding. Issei's voice carried a hint of nonchalance as he spoke, "The porn's over there," gesturing toward the bookcase with his foot. "Take 'em if you want 'em. You don't want them? Brew out of it. They're just drawings. I want the real thing. The things I can touch and squeeze." A playful exchange ensued as Azazel contemplated the allure of the limited edition loot stored in the bookcase, anticipating the appreciation of fellow collectors. He wondered aloud, "Well then, don't mind if I do. You sure you don't want to give them to those two friends of yours?" Issei's response was swift and resolute, revealing a hint of detachment. "I don't need them to hold on to mementos that might remind them of me and some contrived future plot points." There was no hesitation in Issei's words. He seemed unfazed by the idea of parting with these treasures. Azazel couldn't help but wonder if this wasn't the first time Issei had taken such a step. "Why do I get the feeling this won't be the first time you did this?" Issei's shoulders lifted in a casual shrug and he offered a candid explanation. "Because it ain't. I've done it before, but it was too late and I had no use for them. I made them forget about me, but those pesky malevolent gods and goddesses already knew they meant something to me. And nothing in this world can be as petty as insulted man-child deities who like to throw tantrums. They'll hold your goldfish hostage if they know it means something to you." Azazel nodded in sympathy, offering a wry smile. "Had it rough, eh? Want to give me a hug while I cry ugly tears on your chest, or are we diving straight into the stuff I should tell you part?" Issei asked, a dry chuckle escaping his lips. Both he and Azazel shared a laugh, appreciating the humor in their exchange. Issei may have been emotionally scarred, but he had a knack for handling it with a level of stability. "The second offer, pretty please." "Alright, let's make this quick," Issei began, and Azazel casually took a seat on the floor, unfazed by the unconventional choice of seating. "Actually, do you still carry those rolls of cancer around?" Azazel raised an eyebrow, curious about the unexpected question, but he reached into his right pocket and retrieved a palm-sized box, adorned in red and gold, appropriately labeled the governor his personal favorite. "Smoking now?" Azazel inquired, a hint of amusement in his tone. "Don't see the wrong in harmless convenience goods. Won't kill me. Or gave him cancer either. Nor did it make him stink like normal human cigarettes did. Developed by the R&D team of the Gregory Research Institute for quite some while ago, they have successfully mitigated all the unhealthy side effects of smoking these magically enhanced white cylinders. Better filters, healthier substances, no usage of tar, and safe to consume without worrying their teeth would rot away or their lungs be burned." It was an astounding success and took the market by storm. Several noble houses of the devils willingly paid high prices to get these tiny white rolls in their pockets through the black market. The two men soon had a roll each tucked between their lips and scentless gray smoke swirled into the air. Issei tossed Azazel's black and golden Zippo lighter over to him. "You know what's funny? You invented tons of things, but I still think this one takes the cake," Issei said as he rested the roll between his fingers. He didn't have to worry about being stung by the falling cinders or having to clean his floor or bed either. The paper and its content didn't turn to ash, they simply disappeared after being consumed by the fire. Not sure how I feel about that, Azazel replied with a smirk. You didn't call me all the way here just to give you some smokes, did you? No. Issei took another drag. The ghostly grey fumes seeped out his mouth and into his nose and came out from his mouth again. The faint mint mixed with a particular bitterness of the tobacco cooled down his throat and mind. Potentially bad news, Zazzle. Not everything's the same. Oh? I met people who I should encounter far in the future. Namely Arena and Suzaku. Alright. This was getting interesting. How impactful were they during your past? Arena was Gabrino, Michael's ace in the Brave Saint system, Issei began, a system you helped create. It's based on the evil pieces, but replaces the agrees crystals with your artificial sacred gears. They use playing cards as their gimmick, just like the devils with their chess pieces. Azazel blinked, his body momentarily frozen while his mind whirred with theories. Fascinating. I help them, you say. Well, Michael better have groveled for my assistance. I guess they can't rely on the Heavenly Father to create more angels for them, eh? That's the idea, Issei explained. With Dad out of the picture, they wanted to fill the sibling vacuum and couldn't wait for divine intervention. Azazel chuckled. But if that's the case, then turning your friend into an angel might be a tad challenging. Humans into angels, sure, but reincarnated devils. That's a whole different ballpark. Unless they've been tampering with their system, but those guys wouldn't touch their father's legacy with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, but at least I now know that the biblical God is still dead in this reality. What about the old Satans? Did they all get their tickets punched during the Great War too? Yep, Azazel confirmed, a hint of resignation in his voice. All 4 of them, the whole shebang. Forget about those old fogies then. Can you fill me in on what happened to Arena? She flew off to Italy, trained there for God knows what. The Vatican is a no-fly zone for my fallen angels and supposedly the devils, but one of them decided to crash the holy party, resulting in the Holy Maiden's dramatic excommunication. Fast forward a few years and her family mysteriously pops up on the news, blown to smithereens in an explosion. Smells like a cover-up, if you ask me. Fucking hell, Issei muttered, his face contorting in genuine anguish. Azazel noticed the sincerity in his expression. For several months, she stuck with the church that took her in. Then I received word that she was sent back here, to your neck of the woods. But before I could swoop in and snatch her sacred gears, those cunning devils had already beaten me to the punch. Sacred gears? Hold on a sec, Issei interjected. She's a possessor too. Azazel blinked in surprise. Isn't she? Issei shook his head. Nope. Arena trained to wield holy swords, not sacred gears, at least not alleged ones, before you went on a sacred gear production spree. What kind of sacred gear did she have? Sword birth. Heard of it. Fuck. A curse slipped by. That was Kiba's. Hyoudou Kiba's. Azazel tilted his head quizzically. Kiba, you say? Never heard that name before. Right, he got it from Rias. His original name was Isaiah. 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 Azazel jogged his mind, searching files stored inside his library of memories. Nope. Can't say I heard of that one yet. What about Zenobia? Issei pressed. Zenobia Quarta. Another shake of Azazel's head. Zenobia who? I recognize the Quarta part, but I don't recall anything about Griselda having a kid or adopting one. Could they have swapped roles with your friends? Your buddy and this Isaiah? Or maybe Zenobia? Issei leaned back, his hands casually crossed, his second cigarette already in the books. You know, it's possible, but it doesn't quite add up. Something's fishier than a seafood buffet in August. What about Suzaku? Azazel asked. Does she still have the vermilion bird on her side in your version? Yeah, she's supposed to be the head honcho of the Himejima clan, filling in the big shoes of Sir Wasatafo cares. Obviously she isn't now that she's with Rias. She did spend some time working with us, Azazel noted. Issei raised both of his brows. Did she now? Related to Brachial? Oh, you betcha, Azazel replied, his expression momentarily darkening as he took another drag. Smoke curled lazily in front of his face, momentarily parting around his golden locks. She tried to pull the strings behind the scenes, rallying the principal clans to open their arms to Brachial. She saw their conservative traditions as old-fashioned and in dire need of a makeover. She viewed Brachial's wedding to her aunt as a golden opportunity to bring her clan into our fold. It was a well-intentioned effort, but the clan elders took it as heresy. Traditionalists, you know. When she caught wind of their plot to off Shuri, she tried to put a stop to it. Didn't exactly pan out. Issei frowned. And the devils found Akeno first. They did. And not long after they found Brachial's daughter, we led them to find Suzaku. Wasn't a hard decision for her to side with Rias since she had Akeno. The two's like sisters now, I reckon. You let them find her? Issei asked, a hint of disbelief in his tone. Azazel sighed, offering a wry smile. If it were solely up to me, I wouldn't give them the slip. Suzaku's a stand-up gal with a level head on her shoulders. But Barakiel happened, and well. What else can I do? Issei nodded thoughtfully, huffing a snort. Can't leave his daughter alone, can he? Seems like some things never change, Azazel chuckled, pulling out another roll of cigarettes. He used the burnt end of the previous one to ignite the new one before discarding it. Anything else that struck you as offbeat in your neck of the woods? Koneko? Ah, the Nekashu. Azazel acknowledged. Issei dipped his chin in a nod, also taking a new roll as Azazel tossed him one. The shortened cigarettes burned in his hand shortly after lighting the other. What about her? She's stacked. Azazel blinked. Stacked. Yeah. Her chest. They're big. The quirked eyebrow from Azazel. And why is that an issue? Because she wasn't. She was as flat as a pancake, you could have used her as an ironing board. Azazel coughed, not seeing that comment. Hard to believe, right? Well, in my version of the past, she took ages before even considering tapping into her Nekomata powers, thanks to her big sis keeping her physical growth in check. But apparently, that's not the case here. So where's Kuroka these days? The Black Cat. Azazel mused. Yes, I've heard of her. Was she a criminal in your world? Yay? Is she? She was. Azazel muttered. Gone stray, then got caught by the devils, last I heard. Likely doing her time. What did she do on your side? Pretty much the same, Issei replied. Killed a devil who was conducting experiments on her and planning to do the same to her sister. Same here. A confused wrinkle appeared between the governor's eyes. What's the difference then? She didn't get caught. Which bothered him greatly. Unless the devils used her sister to lure her in, he couldn't think of any other reasons for Kuroka to allow herself to be this sloppy. Ah. Yeah. Mildly perturbed, Issei scratched his nose. She's never caught. Where was she now at this point in time in your past? Dunno. Issei shrugged, which wasn't a lie and therefore unable to be detected. He had speculations about her, such as likely wandering around wherever Volley went. Possibly siding with the Cows Brigade. But speculations weren't necessarily the truth. Which, if it wasn't as crucial to his growth as a character, Issei would have warned Azazel to keep an extra pair of eyes on the troublemaking Lucifer. Now, before we continue, any of these lovely ladies end up as your wife in your timeline? All of them are. Issei replied without bragging. They weren't trophy wives to be bragged about. They still will be. Azazel chuckled. Impressive, not getting ahead of yourself, are you? Nah, I've learned my lesson. I made the mistake of not sealing the deal before. No way I'm repeating that. Speaking like a true Casanova. Issei laughed. Casanova? Nah, those guys never settle down. Like you, always staying free. Azazel nodded, acknowledging the truth in that statement. Indeed, fallen angels aren't big on commitment. Barakiel was an exception. But enough about my love life. Let's get back to the fun stuff, he said with a grin. Any particular order in mind? Who's going to be the first wife and all that? I don't care as long as I get them back, Issei said with a disinterested huff. They loved him. That was more than enough. He broke their hearts. He'd take anyone. Rias would be upset, but she'd likely get over it and mature with time. Azazel nodded in approval. A respectable attitude. Look, Zazel, you don't need to worry about who I'll bed first, alright. Issei quipped with a playful grin. You'll know soon enough. Azazel acknowledged, as they say, break a leg. Shaking his head while still chuckling, Issei took a final drag from his cigarette, reducing it to a stub. Let's get back on track, he continued as he exhaled a plume of harmless white smoke. These glitches came out of nowhere, and their personalities remain mostly the same. Raynare's as hot-tempered as ever. My family's the same. Rias and her peers haven't changed much. Irina's her usual cheerful self, and Suzaku is as calm and collected as ever. He added, noting Suzaku's resemblance to Grafia. Azazel smirked. And what makes you think of that? Issei replied straightforwardly, because you trust me, Azazel. You took my words at face value and didn't question a thing. Plus, I can see it in your eyes you still care about Barakiel and hold yourself partly responsible for his actions. You want peace. You're a good man, Azazel. I'd be a fool not to trust you. Azazel chuckled, impressed by Issei's insight, though he secretly pitied the boy's desperation. Perceptive and desperate, aren't you? Issei grinned. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And, honestly, it's exhausting lugging these big metaphorical steel balls around. Azazel snorted in laughter. I get what you mean. So, what does all of this mean for your plan? Any changes or drastic measures? Can't say for sure, but if their personalities haven't changed significantly, it implies that the major players' goals and motives remain mostly the same, Issei explained. So, my plan remains intact. Get you in contact with the devils, have you build relations and earn their trust, and ultimately convince the devils to work together with us. That's a pretty basic and straightforward plan. Any plan that takes more than 4 steps is just wishful thinking. Azazel raised his brow. I said that to you, didn't I? Yep. Cheeky bugger, Azazel sniggered. Now, why does this plan have so much me and not so much you? Issei shrugged. Hey, you're the leader of the Gremory. My position's practically worthless at this point. Azazel nodded in agreement. So you want me to handle all the PR work with the devils? I'll help, but all glory should go to you. It's their trust in you that I'm more concerned with. But how prideful Rias is, I can't guarantee she'll roll out the red carpet for me, Azazel admitted, a hint of cynicism creeping into his tone. In fact, she'll probably fold her arms tighter than a chastity belt, even if I handed over the holy maiden. Good of him to remind him. The glitches had made him forget about the most important thing at the moment, Asia's safety. Where is she, by the way? She's in my office. Raynare spirited her away there, and Penemu's watching over her. She'll be fine. You have my word. Okay. That's awesomely awesome, Issei blandly stated, allowing a small smile. Just a tiny tight-lipped one. Hate to treat her as our bargaining chip here, but you gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? Azazel nodded in agreement. Results should never come at the expense of your principles. But sometimes, you have to be pragmatic. Exactly. Issei shifted the conversation back to Rias. I'll deal with her trust issues. She's stubborn, but she's open to opportunities that can boost her prestige. Azazel hummed, nodding in agreement. Being known as the first devil of her generation to receive a personal call from the leader of their old nemesis should tickle her pride a bit, don't you think? Issei responded with a smug snigger, opting for silence instead of words. Alright, that's the Gremory and the underworld sorted. I'm still betting on your peace plan, but what about heaven? They're likely to see our new alliance as a threat, don't you reckon? Issei leaned back, adopting a contemplative expression. Well, you see, heaven's got its quirks. Michael's all about peace, and most angels follow suit. It's those chosen humans of theirs who tend to be a real pain in the halo. But I doubt the archangels would want to dive headfirst into another war, especially against 2 powerhouses. They'd be stuck in the celestial sandwich press. And by the way, I'd appreciate it if you quit asking me questions you already know the answer to, just because you want to test my critical thinking. Azazel burst into laughter. Hahaha. You saw right through me, didn't you? My apologies, Hyoudou. I just had to hear it directly from you. Just because you've come from the future doesn't automatically make you a master strategist, you know. Issei rolled his eyes playfully. Alright, I'll humor you. I'll do anything to earn your trust. Azazel grinned mischievously. Ah, trust, the sweetest tune to my ears. But remember, a desperate man is prone to believing anything. Issei nodded with a hint of seriousness. Trust me, Azazel, I am desperate. If I can't trust you, I don't know what I'd do. Heavy, Azazel muttered, turning semi-serious once again. Very well then, to address the big elephants, these glitches you spotted. Issei, too, put on his real talk face. I don't see any pattern yet. Most of it has been random. This hasn't been a simple trip through time. The world's the same, for the most part, but it feels like. You're in an alternate world. Azazel offered. Issei nodded gravely. Exactly. Azazel pondered for a moment. Or perhaps someone else has traveled through time and disrupted the threads of fate, he suggested. How did you end up back here, implying this is even considered back? Ophis and Great Red. Azazel's eyes widened in surprise. Gabriel's heavenly bosom, I haven't even met either of them or believed they were real. They don't meddle in the affairs of mortals, Issei clarified. Great Red put it that way, not me. What made them meddle in the affairs of mortals then? Issei responded with a hint of humor, terrorists, misbehaving deities, and naughty people poking them with sticks. Azazel couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Issei continued, either way, I don't think it's possible for anyone else to have done this. I'm the first they've sent back, and that act also erased the future I came from. Ophis confirmed that. Azazel raised an eyebrow. And they agreed to such a nihilistic condition. Issei sighed, his expression turning more serious. Great Red couldn't care less, but I made a promise to Ophis. I told her I'd find her again, and that will require your cooperation with the devils, potentially even heaven. I see you're an impressive man, aren't you? How old were you then? Azazel inquired, genuinely curious. 23, Issei replied, causing Azazel to nearly spit out his imaginary whiskey. 23, that young? I thought you'd be at least in your late 30s. Issei playfully pouted, feigning hurt feelings. Hey, it's not funny. You're hurting my feelings. Azazel couldn't contain his laughter. Ha. You're the oldest young man I've ever met. He laughed his heart out. If it wasn't for the noise-dampening magic he cast on the room earlier, Issei's mother would have shouted at her son to keep it down. Issei continued to whine like a child. Shut up. It's not funny. I don't want to be mentally old, I just want to be happy. The conversation with Azazel seemed to be helping him reclaim his younger, light-hearted side that he thought he had lost. But as all the gods said to him, he was too tough to be killed. His body would break first before his determination had a single dent. They could make him bow, bend him down, but never break him. Hyoudou Issei was still human. He just needed some therapy. Preferably through laughter or those comfortable, tender moments he used to share with any of his girls. These old scars could still be healed. He reminded him of old Volley. And that only fueled his motivation. As the laughter subsided, Azazel mused aloud, I have to wonder, though. I see some parts of me in you. In a non-creepy manner of speaking, of course. Did I raise you to be like this? Issei shook his head. No, you raised me to be a good boy. Your life lessons got overruled by all the crap I had to go through. That's what turned me into this grouchy little bastard you're talking to. Azazel nodded solemnly, a tinge of regret in his expression for asking the question. We'll have to drink to that later. You drink wine? No. My tongue isn't refined enough, apparently. Still too bitter even for me. Ah. Shame. Hey, that doesn't mean I don't drink. Azazel raised an eyebrow. What's your poison then? Anything that isn't wine. Brilliant. I'll bring whiskey next time. Don't forget the glasses, Issei reminded, conveniently shifting the responsibility of drink preparation to Azazel. His family wasn't known for their drinking habits, except for his father occasionally enjoying a beer. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here, he prompted, eager to refocus on the issue at hand. Right. Glitches, yes, Azazel nodded sagely, humoring Issei. I do have one last guess, how many gods did you manage to piss off? I dunno. How many stars are there? Christ, that many huh? It's a losing battle, Zazzle, Issei grumbled, his frustration dripping from every word. You beat one, and suddenly their offspring are knocking on your door, demanding a rematch. You give them a thorough spanking, and next thing you know, their great freaking grandkids are lining up for a piece of the action. It's like trying to maintain a never-ending game of divine whack-a-mole, with no time limit in sight. 4 long years, Azazel, of this endless merry-go-round, and they just keep popping up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. Honestly, it might have been simpler if I'd embraced my inner villain and decided to prune their godly family tree. Azazel couldn't help but be astounded by Issei's candor. This boy genuinely believed he could take on the divine pantheon, and it left the governor both bewildered and concerned. Whoa, slow down there. What kicked off this divine vendetta in the first place? Azazel inquired, genuinely curious about the catalyst for Issei's celestial grudge. Issei exhaled sharply, the bitterness of the past still fresh in his words. I got too strong. They felt threatened because a non-god like me managed to off one of their own, he retorted with a mixture of irritation and disgust. They couldn't stomach the fact that I became more renowned than some of them. It was their own damn fault, but nope, let's blame the kid and make his life a divine dumpster fire for all eternity. That's how it all started, anyway. After that, it's been one futile cycle of revenge plots after another. I've heard of fragile divine egos, but this takes the divine cake. Tell me about it, Issei muttered, clearly fed up with the whole divine mess. Azazel then steered the conversation towards speculative territory. Any chance that one of these meddling gods has the power to mess with time? Kronos could, theoretically, but he's not one to nurse a grudge, Issei replied. Unless, of course, Nyx sweeted him into it, which is about as likely as a snowstorm in hell. She's been doing time in some cosmic lockdown. Azazel, well versed in the art of humor, couldn't resist a playful tease. Are you the unofficial deputy for troublesome gods or something? Issei chuckled, shaking his head. Was never my intention. I just got roped into this divine drama, Azazel. It's like I got scammed big time. Scammed. I tell you, by the whole godforsaken world, and I'm blaming you, Michael, Surziches, the Buddha and Hindu gang, and a few more for good measure. Azazel retorted with a smirk, fully aware of the absurdity of it all. Should I issue an apology now for things I haven't even had the chance to do yet? As long as you don't have to deal with that divine circus again, Issei's mischievous grin shifted into a more sincere expression. Sealing Trahixa was the last straw. The world may have survived, but it never truly bounced back. Sacred gear users went haywire, their gears hijacked by the inner chaos. Chaos Dragon saw the weakened factions as prime real estate to plunge the world into, well, chaos. Azazel contemplated the magnitude of the responsibility Issei and Volley had shouldered alone. Just you two handling that entire mess. That's a Herculean feat. Issei sighed, recalling those grueling days. Volley was in his element, reveling in the chaos. Me? I've never savored such empty victories. Just the two of you? What of the others? Are there any other dragon emperors other than us two that can kill and are willing to kill a god? Fair point. Azazel nodded. And they were so young too. Burdened by the entire world. Shouldering it on their own. What a cruel fate for Issei, at least. Vali would enjoy that kind of fate, which meant he would be trying to stop Issei from achieving this kind of goal. He shouldn't relay this information to that kid of his. Changing the subject, Azazel prompted, so, any impotent deities in your rogues gallery? Issei blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. Impotence. Azazel blinked. Omnipotence, my bad. DSK. Issei broke into laughter. The first of this third life. If that wasn't a whiplash and a half. Azazel's smile was sheepish. It was very rare for the governor to be embarrassed, especially since he thought he was immune to embarrassment. Funny you mention it, Issei couldn't help but laugh heartily. But no, I don't think any of them suffer from divine erectile dysfunction. That'd be quite the divine comedy, wouldn't it? Issei snickered at the mental image of a divine figure struggling with such a predicament. As far as I know, none of these gods are truly omnipotent. If they were, they'd have likely smote me into next week by now. Ah. Your first misinterpretation at last. A sibilant whisper that sent shivers down even the unshakable Issei. He looked around his bedroom, but there was no one else present, only him and the governor. Who the heck was that? Issei questioned, but as he scanned the room, he realized that something strange was happening. Azazel wasn't blinking or moving at all. Time had frozen. An image of one cross-dressing garlic hater entered his mind. Gasper's balance breaker, but it couldn't be that. If it were Gasper, he would be the one frozen in time, not Azazel. Issei tried to reach out to Ddraig for answers, but the dragon remained silent, confirming that this was a power greater than anything he had faced before. Dread started to grip him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Then, from the corner of his room, a dark figure emerged, passing through his dresser like a spectral being. It was tall and gaunt, dressed in a black robe and silver steel armor, twice Issei's height. Dark mists flowed from beneath its robe, tainting the floor with darkness. It stood between him and Azazel. Shit, Issei muttered under his breath. The same deep and imposing voice invaded his mind without bothering to enter his ears. I believe good evening would have been more proper of a greeting, but who am I to enforce civility? Issei thought hard. Harder than he ever had so far. Thought of a way out. He found none. Relax. I don't associate with tasteless acts such as murder. A good start, at least. Who or what the hell are you? Issei blurted out, the cold dread momentarily causing him to forget his manners. His eyes remained fixed on the hood, searching for any hint of a face amidst the vast darkness. I've never seen gods with this appearance before. Names, of course. Customary of you creations. The voice intoned, dripping with an air of ancient wisdom. Chaos. It is what most refer to me with. Occasionally cows by those who wish to feel more unique. Recognition dawned on Issei as he pieced it together. Ah, fuck, he muttered. He had heard whispers of this entity, mentioned sparingly by the gods he had defeated or imprisoned. The first protogenoi. The abyss from which all else sprang. Nyx's grandfather. Great uncle. He corrected his thoughts. For the lack of simpler terms. Like that was any better. Her investigation had, thankfully, left her with empty hands. No signs of Issei being involved with the fallen angels, no magical traces, and no tracking spells to tie him to the supernatural world. It seemed that the fallen angel had merely tricked him into believing he had a girlfriend, and for that, Irina couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Issei should be safe, at least for now. Before pledging herself to become Rias Gremory's knight, Rias had made a promise to never drag Issei into the unseen side of the world. It was an unforgiving realm that had cost her the loss of her parents. They had been kind and good, the best parents she could have hoped for, but this world didn't care about such things. Guilty or innocent, it didn't matter. Yet, Irina still believed that there was some good in this world, however rare it might be. Rias and her friends were living proof that it was worth holding on to hope. Even if there wasn't much goodness outside her little bubble, her little devil family, she trusted herself to be a force where injustice prevailed. Even if it meant forsaking her own dreams to protect her friend and his family, who had provided her with the opportunity to grow up without loneliness and spared her from a bleak fate that might have extinguished her spirit. It was around 8:30 when she left his house, saying her goodbyes to the Hyoudou. They offered her to stay, but Irina had to get back to Rias first. They then told Issei to walk her back, but she had to refuse. The night was dark and full of terrors. Well, not really terrors. Well, it wasn't really a night filled with terrors. It was more like a night with mildly annoying ravens that enjoyed chirping loudly. However, the night was dark and full of terrors sounded much cooler than the night was dark and full of mildly annoying ravens that liked to chirp loudly. Irina gazed up at the night sky, where the full moon hid behind dark clouds. Not an ideal situation for devils, as it made them a bit weaker due to the reflected sunlight from the moon's surface. Still, it wasn't a significant drawback. She and her fellow devils could handle it easily. Irina-chan. Irina blinked and turned toward the source of the familiar feminine voice calling her. Her school's kendo captain approached with a bounce in her steps and a smile that could put sunshine to shame. The captain was decked out in casual attire, wearing a white hoodie adorned with an adorable panda face on the front. It was a striking contrast to her role as the resolute leader of the kendo team. In terms of femininity, she left Irina in the dust. But Irina wasn't concerned about fashion contests at the moment. Ah. Irina replied with a matching smile. What's up, Mayumi-chan? It's Murayama. The kendo captain corrected, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Irina couldn't help but giggle in response. I just needed to clear my head for a bit, she admitted, not mentioning that she was also trying to banish a certain young man from her thoughts. And you? Oh, I just came home from Ikun's house. The reincarnated devil replied, failing to spot the wince that crossed the brunette's face. Visiting mom and dad. You know. Saying hi from time to time. MHMM, Murayama nodded approvingly. They're good people. Can't say much about their boy though, did he try to do anything lecherous to you? He didn't pull any funny business, did he? It's fine. Irina gave her a toothy smile. I'm fine. If he tries anything funny, I'll just send him flying away. Like bam. And stuff. That's good, that's good. It's important for girls to learn self-defense, Murayama nodded seriously, then walked next to Irina as she went to wherever Irina was heading. Going back to the dorm, Irina-chan. MHMM. You should head home too, Murasaki-chan. Murayama. Teehee Murayama-chan. Geez, who even started this trend? Murayama pouted sullenly. She was not only skilled with a sword but also adorably cute. The contrast between her tough kendo persona and her endearing personality was striking, and it made Irina feel a strong desire to protect her friend. Well anyway, you should go home. It's getting dark out here, and isn't your house in the other direction from the school? I'll be fine. I wanted to walk a bit longer anyway, and besides, I brought my taser with me. Murayama patted the front pocket of her hoodie, where Irina could see the rectangular shape outlined against the white fabric. They'll never see me coming. Ha! Surprise electrocution. An effective way to fend off perverts and evildoers in the streets. Yeah. Murayama giggled, happy that Irina was playing along with her nonsense. Their leisurely walk continued until they entered the park, which offered the quickest route to their school. Here, the warm yellow glow of street lamps and the gentle moonlight did their best to fend off the encroaching darkness. The park, usually bustling with running children and gossiping housewives, now lay in eerie silence, the shadows of the trees casting unsettling shapes. Eerie enough for the captain of the kendo club to clutch on her friend's arm. Ugh, this is triggering my repressed field trip memory. Ah, the one where you screamed the loudest. Murayama remained silent, her eyes darting left and right as if searching for hidden threats. Test of courage should be banned from future school activities. Ahahaha. You can start a petition to Sona-senpai. Maybe she'll hear you out. But then anyone who does enjoy it won't be able to do it again. Ah, Irina realized. This was it. The reason for the strange feeling, the urge to protect. It wasn't about wanting to, but about having the will to do so. Don't worry, Murayama-chan. Irina smiled. I'm here with you this time. Thanks, I know I talk a lot about the way of the Bushido and stuff, but you can't really hit ghosts. Irina nodded in agreement. It was indeed challenging to apply the way of the samurai to ethereal entities. Luckily, she hadn't encountered many wandering spirits here, and even if she did, Akeno and Suzaku would be the ones to take care of the naughty spirits. You believe in ghosts, Mura-chan? Murayama shifted uncomfortably. No. It was a blatant lie. Stop talking about it. You brought it up. I know. But stop talking about it. Irina giggled lightly, passing under the basking light as they continued their way through the towns. Her cheerful demeanor quickly shifted, replaced by the alertness of a hawk spotting its prey. Although faint at first, she felt it a touch, gentle as a puppy's tongue, but gradually sinking in like a wolf's bite. Divine magic. The sensation grew stronger, digging deeper into her flesh as it drew nearer. Irina-chan. Murayama clutched Irina's arm tightly, sensing that something was amiss as her friend came to an abrupt halt. Hey, are you okay? Don't tell me there's an actual ghost around. The figure approached them, and Irina's eyes fixed on a man clad in a green coat over a white shirt, red splotches staining his attire. Well, am I lucky or what? A devil. The grinning man's malevolent intent was clear, and Irina knew he meant to harm her. To make matters worse, he was unmistakably an exorcist. Armed with the standard gear of his trade. In his right hand, a sword blessed by an angel gleamed with divine power, while his left gripped a handgun specially designed to fire holy water-infused bullets. Stay behind me, Murayama, Irina ordered, shifting her friend to a safer position behind her. Murayama complied, albeit with a mix of confusion, worry, and fear coursing through her. Ha! Stay behind me, huh? The exorcist's voice dripped with mockery. What is this? An action movie? He cackled, and though he hadn't made any aggressive moves yet, Irina remained vigilant, ready to summon her sword at a moment's notice. But maybe it is a movie and right now, I'm the star of the show. The anti-hero destined to cleanse the world from evil through necessary extreme violence. He continued, his grin widening. And you, my dear devil, you'll be another stepping stone to my soaring career. Irina sensed his skills, the sharpness in his eyes, and his unwavering intent to kill. He wasn't as foolish as his words might suggest, he was a true threat. And again, so was she. Undeterred, Irina took a step forward, causing two falchions to erupt from the cobblestone beneath her feet. She grabbed each one, her gaze locked onto the exorcist's smirking face. Seemingly amused, the exorcist's grin grew wider. Ah, showing your true colors. This'll be fucking. He paused, dipped his chin, and dropped his smile. Fun. Anyone who took him less seriously than he took them were idiots. Very dead idiots. With their limbs and head missing, and big fat red F carved onto their back. F meant for freed fucking Selzen. It will, Irina declared, her eyes narrowing. Just not for you. With that, Irina surged forward, determination in her every step as she aimed to wipe that smirk off his face permanently. The traces of fear had left his eyes. Issei was scared, but now he was thinking. Thinking of an exit strategy, scraping the bottom of the barrel, he thought of every possible reason this primeval entity older than the universe itself would want to do with him. His heart was beating fast, but gradually steadying itself to a normal rate. Unlike the gods he had faced before, Chaos seemed to be one least likely to tell a lie or ruin his life. Because if he wanted to, then Issei wouldn't be here. An apt observation. Very important for a time leaper. Issei clenched his jaw. He couldn't even protect his own thoughts or the fact he was the one who messed with the timeline. You have nothing to hide from me, this much I can tell. No need to worry, either not one fixated on me, at the very least. Chaos spoke. The words were there, just waltzing into his mind without bothering to pass through his ears. What's your deal here, Chaos? Are you here to put me at a disadvantage because of what I did? Even out the odds. You still think you have the upper hand against the gods? I happen to have something they don't use often, a working brain. So it seems. He chuckled. It was like a volcano rumbling deep inside his mind, shaking his core, but also strangely warm. Not the type of warmth Issei would lay his hand into, however. To remove your unnecessary although understandable concern, I am never as petty as those beings who let themselves be blinded by their pride, nor do I share any sentimental attachment towards any of them. They are, such as you are, actors of this stage, where I am the only audience. An observer, if you will. So you're the passive observer, eh? Issei said, finding bravery in Chaos's uncanny casualness. Alright, let's get this over with. What do you want from me? Fight for you? Be your champion? Be your chosen while I fight fate? As interesting of a proposal it is, I don't feel the necessity of tampering with your own fate. You shape your own, as does everyone else. I demand nothing from you, nor have I ever demanded anything from a single soul. I observe. That is it. Issei lowered his eyebrows, still seated on his bed. If he could light another smoke, he would. And through my observations, within the last 4 years of the world you left behind, you have done something nothing else has managed, Hyoudou Issei. A pause. Issei could feel the eyeless gaze boring deep into his soul. You surprised me. Issei blinked. So far from who you were. From those you love. From who you wish to become. Far away from home. Forced to forsake your own dreams, so others may dream. You gave up your time, so others may have it. Gave away your liberty, so others wouldn't be taken away. You were loved and yet you stand alone. Alone in the past you have grown to despise. Your hope has been so utterly crushed. Chaos lowered his cowl, as if to better see the human's expressionless face, almost like he was not concerned by any of it, almost detached. But Chaos knew. Chaos knew the boy was doing the same thing he did then. And yet you remain unbroken. While he appreciated the understanding, Issei wasn't a fan of being observed and being seen as an interesting anomaly in these stranger worlds. But he knew better than to be a bitch about it. He'd complain about it from time to time, but never a bitch who kept on bitching. Hyoudou Issei was no bitch, nor was he anyone's bitch. What else am I supposed to do? Give up? Keel over and die? He replied, trying to find solace in the self-defense measure called forced humor. If I was going too off myself, then I would have at least wanted to see how it all ended. And see it all burn. A grim glimpse to your thoughts. It turns out I'm not as virtuous as everyone thinks I am. Issei admitted. He really was on the verge of breaking. If not for Ophis' intervention, perhaps he would have shattered. If you're so impressed with me, can I at least know what you're here for? Taking a closer look. Well, Issei spread his arms like a certain gladiator of the old. Here I am. Not much of a looker, I know. I pity the fools who judge by appearance alone. You pity a lot of things then. Chaos let off another chuckle. Unfortunately so. But I am not here to talk. I am simply here to warn you and offer you some explanations. First, I am not a god. Gods are the creations who think they are clever and powerful to assume they are above everything else. They're underneath you, is what you're telling me. Yes. They bother themselves with the idea of good and evil, illusions for the creations to justify their actions to gain whatever it is they desire. Something you are well aware of. And in this time, Hyoudou, although you are not entirely mistaken to claim none of them are omnipotent, yet they can and have felt the disturbance in the weaves of time. There was a ripple in the surface caused by a droplet which is the arrival of your soul. The stone called fate that has been reshaped. And time, endless as it may be, is not one for any mortals to tamper with. Not in this severity. Not even the Ouroboros dragon nor the protector of the dimensional gap. Shit. He didn't have anything else he could say to that. Those were the rules set by the gods. I don't care. But some of my nephews do. And their children and their children's children. Issei scrunched his face as he muttered a name, dripping with ire. Nyx her and her daughters is it? The knight and her Moirai, yes. To name a few. Great. There's more. The gods are angry, Hyoudou Issei. Childish as well. Immortals rarely concern themselves with consequences. Issei let out a frustrated sigh. They turned over every rock they could. And as you are made aware of their carelessness bred from their pride, some rarely take the time to properly set the stone in the exact same place they have found them. That explained all of the glitches he'd seen. Then why haven't they killed me yet? Issei frowned. Chaos's cowl shifted down slightly. It appears those gods decided against letting you die without meaning. By their own words to see you suffer. Merciful aren't they? Ha. They're mad because you've weaved your own threads of fate. Where they entangled themselves in their own petulant fury. But I digress. They think it is too much of a waste to simply cast you aside. Much like how you see that fallen angel. I am not like them. Not exactly alike. But there are similarities. He couldn't respond to that. They wish to see how you perform. But where you wish to test Raynare. They wish to see your eyed with these new challenges. Bad mistake. The human said confidently. I've outwitted them once. I'll outwit them again. So you assumed. A vague reply that wasn't to avoid telling the truth, Issei realized. You know of the future, don't you? You just chose to not know it. Excellent observation. The future you left behind is of the past. The future is the only knowledge I keep hidden away from myself. Discovery is an important thing and a source of entertainment. There is not much left for me to discover, Hyoudou Issei. We're all just actors to you, aren't we? Everything is. Bothered? No. Issei shook his head lightly. A god that doesn't do anything is better than the god who does something and causes troubles. You can watch all you want. You know I'm not here to entertain you or anyone. Indeed. If only all creations share your perspective instead of whining all the time. Perhaps things could have been different. He was talking about the future that was now the past. Why don't you just do that? Because then it won't be nearly as interesting. Chaos chuckled again, and Issei's mind shook again as he rolled his eyes. But the "this amuses me" type of primeval entities was far from the worst it could have been. Chaos, in spite of his name, found enjoyment in chaos, not by causing it. Not like plenty of other gods. Do any of the gods know of this? That you're telling me all this? Why should they? They've done things without putting any reason behind it other than being a god. It appears they have thought being a glorified deity meant they were free from the consequences. If so, then Issei simply had to prove them wrong again. Just not necessarily by him. If there were others who could kick their godly asses, then Issei could very much attempt to use them instead. As long as they weren't any of his girls or the people he cared far too much, no one in this world was untouchable. He simply required to use his power conservatively and grow steadily. He didn't need to be the strongest, just strong enough to protect those he cared the most and not die while doing it suited him perfectly. No need to draw unnecessary attention from any factions or leaders that would want to make use of his power. The world had used him. Now they should protect themselves. You said you're an observer, but you telling me this also changes things, but you know that, don't you? Why yes. Of course. You wonder why I told you so? Perhaps I wanted to give you a prize for surprising me. A not so impactful one, at that. After all, these tampering of the gods you call glitches are new to you. Something you must handle without prior experience. And I am hoping for you to surprise me once again. I will be watching you and the roads you take with great interest, Hyoudou Issei. Until we meet again. Farewell. The room brightened, and a black haze swirled into the depths of his robe before chaos faded away, leaving a single trail of black smoke that vanished not long after. And as the progenitor disappeared, along with the dark mists that had been pooling over the floor, submerging Azazel's crossed legs, time flowed once again. Well, that Azazel paused, noting something had gone off. Hinted by Issei not sitting in the same way he was just a millisecond earlier, and by the grim look on his face. Something happened, didn't it? Issei clapped his hands. Good news, Azazel. I know what's causing the glitches. He declared with a face and a sigh. Bad news, Azazel. I know what's causing the glitches. Potentially greater news, it doesn't change our game plan. Murayama couldn't comprehend the surreal scene unfolding before her. A gun, real swords with lethal blades, incredible speed and reflexes, nothing made sense. What did the man mean by a devil? Her mind raced with questions, but she was trapped in a nightmarish reality she couldn't fathom. Just what on earth was going on? Unaware of her friend's thoughts, Irina gritted her teeth in frustration as Freed continued to outmaneuver her. Each time she closed the distance, he parried her slashes and fired his gun, forcing her to dodge or change her trajectory to avoid the bullets. Bang. Another shot rang out as a sanctified bullet struck her falchion instead of its intended target. Irina's violet eyes blazed with fury and irritation. Deflecting bullets wasn't a challenge as long as she anticipated his aim and moved her sword accordingly. Stand your ground like a man, you pansy. She taunted. But you have two swords. The exorcist retorted, flailing his holy sword and waving his gun with a grin. But I've got a gun. Irina shifted her stance, lowering her upper body to adjust her center of gravity. She had the feeling that if it weren't for the full moon, she could have already incapacitated him. But you're good, Miss Young Devil, too frustratingly good, he muttered, pointing his gun at Irina, but then shifted its barrel towards Murayama. But she can't be that good. Realization widened her eyes, but it came late. The exorcist wasn't just dodging, he had been slowly rotating their position, getting her away far enough from Murayama, whose only cover was the lamppost in front of her. Run. Irina shouted, but her warning came too late. A high-pitched noise pierced the air, and a silver bullet tore through Murayama's chest, leaving her gasping for breath as she staggered backward, wide-eyed and in disbelief. Irina's stomach plummeted into an abyss as her friend, whom she had vowed to protect, stared at her with a mixture of fear and bewilderment. Murayama clutched the growing red dot on the panda's right eye emblazoned on her white hoodie, and the crimson stain continued to spread. You're gonna drop your swords if you want to save her, little devil, the exorcist taunted, a cruel grin dancing on his lips. Or you can prove to us powerless humans that devils are up to no good, using humans for their own gains. Your choice. How generous of me, right? Irina's grip on her swords tightened, but she forced herself to release them, letting them fall to the cobblestone road with a resounding clang. But good, obey me like the good bitch you are. Gritting her teeth, Irina knew she needed to make contact with the ground to cast sword birth at a range and offensively. If she could trick him, then it was still possible to save her friend and herself. So she began lowering herself, slowly bending her knee, as sharp pain erupted from her back. She glanced down and saw a black blade, coated with her own blood, its holy aura searing her flesh. Blood filled her mouth, and she coughed painfully as the holy sword was pulled away from her back. Her strength ebbed, and she slumped to the ground, her gaze locked with Murayama's growing terror and confusion. Oh, for fuck's sake. I had her. We're not here to dally with the devils, a stern voice came from behind her, methodically making its way around her, and kicked away her swords further from her reach. And we're not here to hurt innocents who have nothing to do with our business, all you're accomplishing is giving the devils a reason to hunt you down like a dog, Selzen. Yeesh. You're no fun at all. Let's kill her and leave if you're so pissy about it. And give the devils a motive for all-out retaliation. I thought you were smarter than this. If you want to anger both Gremory and Citri, be my guest, but not while I'm here. The exorcist grunted. Whatever. I just wanna slay bitches and get paid. Then let's move, the woman said. The devils will busy themselves by tending to her. The night should be ours. What were they planning? And why did the woman's voice sound so eerily familiar? So wheat, the male exorcist exclaimed, his voice lowering as they walked away. How many you got? 4. 6. Eat that. This isn't a race. But good work. It is for me. Give me the motivation, you know. As Irina's powers gradually slipped away, she strained to lift her head. She saw a blonde ponytail cascading from the woman's white robe, and her gaze met the woman's sharp ice-cold blue eyes. These eyes had once held kindness until an event that diverged their fates and separated their paths. You me? As the two exorcists faded into the distant darkness, Irina felt the last of her consciousness slowly fading away as a criteria had been met for one summoning flyer to activate and crimson light emerged from the pocket of Murayama's hoodie just as her last breath left her body. The wish that triggered it. I wish I could have protected my friend. The next day, which was Saturday, as promised, Hyoudou Issei devoted his entire day to sate Azazel's undying curiosity to his sacred gear, which was done entirely inside Issei's own bedroom that had become their temporary base of operation, but also the safest place as Azazel was strong enough to contain everything in a room this small. The governor's eyes couldn't be brighter with joy, and Ddraig couldn't be any excited when Issei finally activated the boosted gear, shifting its shape from twice critical to the crimson-spiked gauntlet every god's learned to fear. Done easily due to him sacrificing his left arm, a problem needed to be solved within the foreseeable future. After running a series of tests, mainly Azazel asking him details about how many form the boosted gear possessed and how many he had unlocked during his past and how many new abilities he had learned that was never discovered by any of his previous predecessors. Issei showed off his mastery and capability of using Ddraig's tremendous magical power to help mitigate his body that lacked any traces of the spiritual fuel called mana that was used by human magicians to conjure their own unique magic that was separated into 10 tiers. Clasping his gauntlet that had become ghostly and transparent in appearance, Issei released his concentration as the crimson color popped back into place. It was reaching midday, Issei realized as he checked his wall clock. Chill touch, eh? Azazel nodded sagely, a wide smile on his face. I think this is the first time a dragon emperor can actually use sorcery. Historically speaking. Your history, you mean? Azazel laughed. So it is, so it is. I've never heard of anything ever pissing off that amount of gods within the span of 4 years? Give or take, yeah. What other spells can you cast aside from the cantrips? The lowest tier of spells, easiest to learn, easiest to cast, and the least draining compared to the rest. Rather, what's the highest level you can cast right now? First is my limit, but give me enough time and I'll be able to bring meteors down again. Issei said without the will to brag. That aside, I can cast Fist. Azazel wrinkled his black-brownish eyebrows. First time I heard of that. What does it do? I punch people in the face. After a long silence, Azazel snorted and laughed. What about the limitations? Since I haven't done any physical training other than light exercises, I can only cast 4 of them per day before knocking myself out cold with the 5th, Issei sighed as he stretched his hands. I already showed you one, so that's 3 slots left for me until I take a long nap. You gave me quite the shock, partner, blacking out like that all of a sudden. The gauntlet spoke, its green gem glowing as one word left it. I eagerly await the day where I can lend you my strength to the fullest. You sure will, bud. Then we'll take names and kick asses. You can keep the names, I get the asses. Not the worst bargain I've had. Why would you want to keep? Actually forget I asked. Aw, why not? I can give you a detailed explanation. Or Vali could. At that, the governor raised his eyebrow in a never-before-felt kind of interest. Vali. He's an ass man. Eyes too, actually. Anything from below the belt. Huh. Azazel made a face of mixed surprise and amusement. I learn something new from you every day. Who'd have thought the boy actually had it in him? Babe. He's just not as brazen as me when it comes to admitting our preferences. Issei's grin infected him. Oh. And what's yours then? A distinguished gentleman is a man who can appreciate the finer things in life, the holy trinity of tits, booty and thighs. Ah, I see. A fellow man of culture, you are. Azazel nodded sagely, feeling a powerful bond had been created between them. Preferences are for kids. True men enjoy the whole package and make their women feel appreciated as a whole. Couldn't put it better myself. Issei nodded sagely, hands crossed. And Ddraig couldn't be more mortified. Cease this exchange at once. But the virgin dragon got a point. Issei muttered. Some would find it demeaning, but dragons never saw mating more than a method to continue their legacy when their body perished. Ddraig simply found it to be an embarrassing talk. Which it was. Has Raynare said anything to you? And speak of the fallen angel, he supposed. Azazel picked up Raynare's present standing outside the gate of the time traveler's house. Here she is. Azazel said, and soon enough, a shout came from downstairs. The boy's mother. Ice. Your girlfriend's here. Azazel temporarily phased out the magical soundproofing of the room, signing Issei with a nod as he then shouted back to his mother, just let her up here, mom. Thanks. The boosted gear vanished in a brief flash of green light, removing itself from Issei's bare hand. The experiments were done and now was the time of discussion. Within a few moments, Amano Yuma entered the room and nearly jumped back out when she spotted the governor sitting next to the boy on the same bed. The girl quickly shut the door behind her and Azazel re-erected the sound barrier just as quickly as surprise flashed across her face. Lord Azazel. I didn't know you would be here. Raynare stammered, turning back into her real form and her scandalous outfit that put Brazilian V-bickiness to shame. Sorry Raynare, Issei said, I banged him first. Both the fallen angels turned their eyes at him, one in shock and the other in absolute state of confusion, before breaking away into a wheezing laughter, slapping his thigh and coughing out his lungs due to the perfect delivery and the perfect poker face and how dreadfully shocked Raynare was. Ah gods, my stomach hurts now. Was I too rough? Shut up, Hyoudou. Azazel snapped, but still giggling. You're torturing the girl. Besides, I'm no cardinals. Choir boys don't excite me. Stunned, Raynare actually had to shake her head to compose herself. I have news. She muttered, desperately trying to maintain her jealousy from breaking out. She had spent years to gain Azazel's approval and to get him to just talk to her and laugh with her casually, never achieving it, well the boy did it all in one day. Here we go again, what kind of news? Azazel said, taking out his harmless cigarette pack and taking out a roll, offering the small box to the boy next to him. Issei took the offer. Nothing like a good smoke after a good fuck. God damn it Hyoudou, Azazel snickered, lighting the white roll between his lips and then passing the lighter to the jockster, then extending the cigarette pack to the uneasy fallen angel before them. You smoke. Recreationally. Thank you, Raynare blinked. She would forever remember the day her Lord Azazel gave her something, even if it was just a tiny roll filled with fat-grown herbs. After Issei had his lit, he tossed a Zippo lighter to her. She caught and burned the tip of her cigarette, taking a drag and savoring its minty breath, imagining this would be how it felt like if Lord Azazel was ravaging her mouth with his tongue. Smokes billowed from their lips, lazily floating upwards, before fading entirely without leaving any smell or bothersome residues. Azazel began, okay then. Let's start again. What kind of news, Raynare? Have you dealt with Freed yet? Bad, Lord Azazel, sir. And no. I haven't had the opportunity, but I will kill him. I swear, Raynare admitted grimly. I'm running out of time. Yesterday they were still preparing for the ceremony to detach a sacred gear from its host. She peered at Issei for a facial reaction. He showed none. The preparation was done just today. Right now they're sending me away because they want to see the Holy Maiden and proceed with the ritual. This soon? Issei muttered. Well, he did expect to have at least one more week before Asia's murder and revival. Chaos's warning had eased the blow of the news. That said, how come? The ritual needed sacrifice. 20 humans for one sacred gear user. I thought getting their blood would at least take them a while, but the exorcists sent here did it all the same night they came here. Azazel noted Issei's concern. Glitches. Yeah. Balls. Raynare continued, though the word glitches caught her attention. Worse, one of the exorcists sent here was under Kakabiel's direct order, and her words carry more weight than mine do. She said Kakabiel wanted it to be done tonight. Issei scrunched his eyebrows. Freed's a girl. Freed? No. Not him, the other one. Isay. What does she look like? Blonde hair, blue eyes, average height. Yes. Who was she in your version? Issei sighed. He had thought of this. He thought preparing himself would make it easier to swallow. It didn't. And he was Rias' knight. At that moment, Issei felt a punch into his gut and a burning ire towards the gods that he swore not to spare in this new timeline. Whoever decided it was funny to turn his friend into his enemy, and worse, turning them into a girl to pour salt in his wound, deserves nothing less than a long, drawn-out death. Alright then, Issei stood up and said calmly, though only on the surface. Underneath was a dragon prepared to bring cataclysm. Do you know what this means? He was testing her. Fine. She'd proved to him she could use her brain. I can't keep spying on them or Kakabiel. Not unless you're giving me another sacred gear user. MHMM. And I don't do well with sacrifices. Issei turned to the governor. This means we'll have to meet with the devils right now. You good now, Azazel? Me? I'm always good. Azazel smirked, standing up and flattening his burgundy suit, turning the remaining cigarette into dust as it disintegrated. I'm hiding behind you if they jump me though. Barakiel's girl, most importantly. Rias should be able to keep Akeno in check. But sure. I'll be your damn hero. How reassuring. Raynare took one last drag and exhaled through her nostrils. Let me get my subordinates out from the crossfire. Raynare said, practically pleading although it hurt her pride to admit it. I'll be quick. If possible, you won't have to deal with 2 exorcists. Get your men out and leave them to the devils, Issei told her. She got Asia out. A shame about Freed, but as he had said, he didn't rely fully on Raynare to deal with all of these problems. I don't know much about Isay yet, but Kiba had a good head, and if she got Kakabiel's trust, she's more dangerous than Freed. Raynare nodded. No use fighting or defending her pride since he knew better than her. Fine, I'll convince my men to get out. If you come back without the girl, they'll ask questions, Raynare, Azazel pointed out. A very good point. I don't need to come back to them. I'll set a place and they can meet me there. Azazel considered before asking, you trust them? Not all of them. Just 3. They listen to me more than to any of the exorcists, she said. I roped them into this whole mess, let me at least get them off the stage. Azazel looked at Issei, who gave a shrug, and Azazel gave a nod to Raynare. Then get them before we move in. I won't be joining the devils as that'll risk exposing my interference to Kakabiel, likely jump-starting whatever plan he had in mind against me. Once I meet the devils, I'll be in the hotel. Gather your lackeys and meet me there. You and your pals will probably be out of a job. Jobs I happen to have. Lord Azazel, yes. Thank you. Her violet eyes lit up and to his surprise, Issei actually felt a bit happy for her. I won't fail you. We'll see about that. Be quick, Raynare. Knowing Rias and her impulsiveness, she won't want to waste any time after I give her the get-go. Yes my lord. At once. As Raynare shifted back into a monoyuma and rushed outside his house, probably surprising his mother watching Korean drama downstairs, Issei finished the last of his smoke. It clouded his vision just as doubts clouded his mind. Creed must die tonight. But what about Kiba? End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys, before you go just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.